All right, I'd like to call to order. The City Council oath of office ceremony and reorganization to order Monday, December 10th, 2018 at 7 p.m. Tonight, we're going to have the invocation given by my Parks and Rec Commissioner, Mitch Hack, followed by the presentation of colors by Boy Scout Troop 1776, and then the Pledge of Allegiance by Mark Santa Inez. Would all of you please rise, and Commissioner Hack, will you please come to the podium?
Will you bow your heads as I pray? Dear Father in heaven, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here this evening. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you. Thank you for your boundless and gracious mercy. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor-elect and for the various levels of our city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and righteousness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their tasks. I pray for the agenda set before them this evening. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Bellflower. It is in your Son's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Color guard, attention. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, cross colors. Color guard, present colors. Those in uniform, hand salute. Those not in uniform, place your right hand over your heart. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready, two. Color guard, hold the flag of the United States of America. Color guard, post the flag of the great state of California. Color guard, regroup. Color guard, dismiss, at ease.
Please be seated. Thank you so much. Can we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Coops,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Santinez,
Here.
Councilmember Garza,
Here.
Mayor Dutton,
Here. Okay, oath of office ceremony, Mr. Stewart. Oh, okay.
The next item is the oath of office ceremony.
At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Councilmember Coops. And
Thank you,
then
Mr. Mayor.
we'll have Mayor Pro Tem Sonny Santinez and myself and Ray Hamada-elect to meet us down on the podium.
Doing my part, Ray.
Oh. I can't give it up. It's hard.
About 10 minutes will be over for me. All right, so would council members-elect Sonny Santinez and Ray Dutton and council member appointee Raymond Hamada take your places at the presentation area, and also would Irma Santinez and Don Dutton and Sue Hamada and the Honorable Lee Sowell, Judge of the Superior Court, please join them. The Honorable Lee Sowell will now administer the oath of office to council member-elect Sonny R. Santinez.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Sonny R. Santinez,
I, Sonny R. Santinez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
The Honorable Lee Sowell will now administer the oath of office to council member-elect Ray Dutton.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ray Dutton,
I, Ray Dutton,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I'll support and defend
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and I will and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
The Honorable Lee Sowell will now administer the oath of office to council member appointee Raymond Y. Hamada.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Raymond Y. Hamada,
I, Raymond Y. Hamada,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion, that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations.
All right, now will the city clerk please come forward and present the certificates of elections?
Thank you, Councilmember Coops. On behalf of the voters and the City Council of this great city, it is my honor and privilege to present you with your certificates of election and certificate of appointment, officially declaring you elected and appointed to the City Council of the City of Bellflower. Congratulations.
All right. Thank you, Judge Sal. We appreciate your time in coming out this evening. I'd like the audience to now join me in congratulating our newly elected and newly appointed city council members. All right, Mayor Dutton.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Coops. Mr. Stewart, next item, please.
This is the reorganization of the city council.
Okay, thank you. The nominations are now open for the office of mayor of the city of Bellflower. Nominations do not require a second.
I'd like to nominate Cindy Santanez.
Okay. Not hearing any further nominations. When I call your name, please state aye or no. Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Garza,
Aye.
Councilmember Amata,
Aye.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Councilmember Santanas.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Nominations are now open for the office of Mayor Pro Tem. Nominations do not require a second.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Juan Garza for Mayor Pro Tem.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing no further nominations and without objection, nominations are closed. City Clerk, would you please call the roll, please?
Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Garza,
Aye.
Councilmember Amata,
Aye.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Mayor Santanas.
Aye. Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem Juan Garza.
Start adjusting our seat, now we know our seats.
We'll do it later. We'll do the adjustment later during the break. We're gonna take a break, so, okay. We're gonna be more efficient tonight. I'd like to ask our fellow council members to say a few words. Let me start with Council Member, it's hard to say it, Mayor, Council Member Dutton.
Ex-mayor. Well, this is pretty humbling, being up here for my fourth term, and all I know is I set out a long time ago of trying to change the image of this town, and frankly, over the last 4 years of being up here, I think it has been changed. And there's so many neat things happening and so many things getting done that I think there's not this Bellflower's back, there's a new Bellflower in the vision. And I really believe that. And we have a wonderful community, and I appreciate the whole community supporting myself and my colleagues. And my family has always backed me 100%. And for the time that I have to be up here and help this city, and without my family and my wife and kids, and it wouldn't be as fun, or it wouldn't be as easy. They just make it a job that is very rewarding. And with that, I feel that I am blessed. And thank you very much for believing in me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Dutton. Next, Councilmember Coops.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First time to say that to you. But it's a great experience to have everybody represented throughout the city at our meeting tonight to show your support for what's going on in the city of Bellflower. As Ray has mentioned, he has been mayor before. He just concluded his third time around.
Yeah.
And the city continues to have very positive reactions throughout the town, and we are proud of the fact that we're moving forward. It's a historic night because we have a new member here with us in Ray Hamada, and you saw the process go forward a couple weeks ago whereby he was selected to be a member of our group. What's neat about our city council is that you can see that we respect each other. We have a good time with each other, and we know how serious this business is of governing our city, but we also know that we all are of one mind to try to make the city better. We're not in it for personal gain. We're here to make our city better. And I think you can see throughout the last 10 years, there has been a true resurrection of our city in a way that's been very positive. And the cities around us have said to us what's going on in Bellflower, and that's really quite cool. But as we go forward with Mayor Sonny and our good friend Juan Garza, first time as Mayor Pro Tem, which again, a historic night for the Garza family to be in that position of authority. We know that they've been tested before they got here at the position they're holding tonight. They've shown themselves to be men of integrity, men of caring, men of hearing the community. And so it's a real pleasure to be a part of this group. And as we go forward, as we are for the next 2 years, we look forward to continue to make Bellflower even greater than it was today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Coops. And now our newly minted Councilmember Ray Hamada.
I think I'm still on probation.
It's imaginary.
But no, first off, I think I had my first heckler. That was my grandson. So, thank you, Jace. Well, this has been quite one of those e-ticket rides the last couple of weeks. And but now my feet are planted firmly back on solid ground that we fondly love, and that's the city of Bellflower. Moments ago, I did speak of my faithful and dedicated service with the oath. Thank you, Judge. My heart is full of hope for this community, and I will work to my best to continue to ensure that this community thrives, and I just want to see it to the fullest. So I'm again, truly humbled, and I am most appreciative of this honor, and I definitely want to thank my colleagues now of the honor, and again, I want to thank them for their confidence and support. I definitely look forward to working with each of you in the pursuit for the best of Bellflower. Wanted to turn to my family and want to thank them for their unconditional love and the moral support and the patience now once they hear my new schedule. So, but again, I want to also give a special thank you to the Schnablegger family, and I do think about Ron a lot, and my term will definitely be influenced by our mutual love of serving this community. So I wanted to thank Ron. I know I'll be seeing him again. So again, some of you know that I spent my working career in like urban planning, community development. So okay, philosophically speaking, I'm kind of full of practical experience, but I definitely want to see the big picture for Bellflower, and but I'm going to always throw in some generous dabs of just some plain common sense. So, but I just want everyone to just be ready to look at some creative solutions. We're going to listen to each other. We're going to talk it out, and so with that, I want to see true that, again, Bellflower is going to be growing together. So I just want to say God bless you, God bless Bellflower, God bless our country, and thank you again.
And now Mayor Pro Tem Juan Garza.
Wow, thank you. First of all, congratulations, Ray, welcome. I think you're joining a really special group of people up here, and I know you're going to fit in well, and I'm looking forward to working with you. Mr. Mayor, congratulations. Look forward to working with you, continuing our work together. And I would just want to piggyback on what Dan said before about the group of servants that you have up here. We really do care for each other. We work very well. The city is always what guides us, what's best for the city. And it's a true honor to serve with you all. But I wanted to end on that note with Ray Dutton. He really is a great public servant. And I think the biggest indication that I could show right now for how big of a public servant he is that you may not notice, but his term as mayor was actually shortened because of our adjustment in our election cycle. So traditionally, we serve as mayors for a year. His term was shortened by 4 months because of the adjustment. I can tell you that I work with many cities, and I would be hard-pressed to find one city that would have a council member do what he did, which is to say, you know what, I'm okay with just 8 months in order to keep the city moving forward. In other cities, you would have political infighting, you would have just bickering. He didn't do that. And so, again, it's just, thank you. Thank you for your leadership, for your friendship, and for your love for our city. It's been an honor to serve with you as mayor. Look forward to working with you as a council member, but it's a true honor. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your faith. All right. That completes my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everyone first for coming tonight, for tonight's event. This is a wonderful event. And before I forget, I want to thank Judge Sao, Mitch Hack, Boy Scouts Troop 1776, Mark Santainez, our city clerk, for your participation in tonight's event. This is a very nice ceremony, and you just made it very special. I also want to thank staff for what you did today, organizing this whole event. It takes a village to put this together. So to all the staff, I will not name names because I might forget someone. To all the staff, thank you so much. Also, I want to thank our residents for giving me and Ray another 4 years. And indirectly Ray Hamada for 2 years, so for giving us your confidence for another term. And also I want to thank my fellow council members for electing me as mayor. It's cool to be mayor. It's just like what Councilmember Coops used to say, it's wonderful to be a mayor of your hometown. But to me, it's a different, because to me, it's wonderful to be a mayor of my adopted town. And that's the city of Bellflower. And I want to thank my family for your support, my wife, Irma, my son, Mark, his wife, Sophia, my daughter, Ellen, my sisters, my brother, my nephews, my niece, my sister-in-law, they're all here. Thank you for your support, thank you for your patience, and thank you for reviewing everything that I write, so that make sure it is correct, and it is readable, and it is going to be accepted by our residents. So thank you for your support. At this time, I'd like to honor Ron Schnabberger. He would have been here. So I'd like to ask you for a moment of silence in memory of Ron. Will you please? Thank you. So as you know, Ron is a wonderful member of our team. Not only is a council member, he and Ray and myself ran 4 years ago, and we were blessed to have a resounding vote from the residents 4 years ago. And it happened again this time. Before I forget, I want to thank outgoing Mayor Ray Dutton. It's always nice to follow Ray. This is my second go-around following Ray as mayor. And as Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Juan Garza said, Ray is just the epitome of public service. Ray will be appropriately recognized for his service on Monday, January 14, 2019 at 5 p.m. at the Green Room downstairs. So please save the date, and it will be another joyous occasion for all of us. And again, I want to congratulate Councilmember Ray Hamada and welcome him to the City Council. He will be a wonderful addition to the City Council family. And if I recall correctly, Ray and I served in the Planning Commission for 2 years. I understand that Ray has got a big shoe to fill, but I'm sure that he will do just fine. I also want to thank our city manager, our city clerk, all city staff, and our city attorney for your dedication, for your great ideas, and most importantly, for your wonderful service to our residents. That's where it counts, our service to our residents. And let me just spend a few minutes about my fellow council members. It's an honor to serve with you, gentlemen. And we form a very cohesive team. We don't agree on everything all the time, especially in closed sessions. That's where the disagreements come out. But let me remind you that when we come out here, we are always united. One of the things I'm proud of my fellow council members is that when we vote, there's no second guessing. There's no Monday morning quarterbacking. We respect each other's position. Once it's been stated, we vote, and that's the end of it. And most importantly, I can assure you that the council here has no self-interest. To me, that's paramount. It's the interest of the city of Bellflower is always in our mind. We're not here, nobody's here to make us rich. No one's here. So if you're thinking to be a council member that's going to make you rich, it's a wrong position for you to be in. In fact, you might be spending more money than what you get. And I just want to piggyback on what Councilmember Coops in terms of our team, how we get together, how we come to a vote. I was at the Christmas tree lighting ceremony last Friday, and I was chatting with our new state senator, Bob Archuleta, and he found out that we have a newly appointed council member. And he said, "How did you do that?" So I explained to him the process, what we went through. He said, in other cities, that would not happen that fast. But I can tell you one thing. It happened because we have each other's respect, each other's trust. And if you were here during the deliberation, during the process, when Ray was appointed, you would feel that there is a strong trust and respect among the 4 council members. And I know that Ray will basically just join us in that respect for these council members. And then finally, I just want to reiterate what Councilmember Dutton said in terms of what we have accomplished in the last 8-10 years. Modesty aside, it is impressive. And I know that everyone will agree that we have an impressive accomplishment over the last few years. And I don't want to use this time to tell you what's going to happen, but there's a lot more in the pipeline. More good things are happening. More good things will come to our city. So please stay tuned. And I'm going to ask you a couple of things as a city. We bring a lot of business to Bellflower, but please patronize them. We cannot just rely on the residents of other cities to come here and patronize our business. It has to start from us. It has to start from within. So please patronize our business when they come in. And secondly, we have a lot of tasks ahead of us. So I ask for your prayer. Please pray for us so that God will give us the wisdom to decide and do what is best for the city. So thank you so much. Okay, at this time, we will take a short break. We'll have coffee and refreshments in the lobby. So please feel free and enjoy, and we'll join you later. In the meantime, while you are out there, we'll be having picture takings with Judge and the families of the council members. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Thank you, thank you. Okay, let's take photos. We have 15 minutes. So we're gonna do the shuffle now?
Huh?
No, I want to make sure I gave the, I want to start right now.
Much love. It meant a lot to me. That you
No, you and I from the beginning. Good evening. You're going to find one of the best years of your life. You're going to have other good years. But just cherish it.
I am.
You know what I'm saying?
I am. No, I am.
Because it'll never be this way again. The room changes, people change, Schnauberger leaves us, but you got to live in the moment.
You're right. Sorry, you've told me that before. Absolutely right.
You know, because a year from now, you don't know who's here, who isn't, who came, who's not. But you just, it's a good thing. You got to remember tonight. And I always like to dwell on the positive because when you have the negative days, you draw on the positive.
Absolutely. You're right.
There's my wisdom.
No. I appreciate it. You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan.
No.
Thank you.
I appreciate your accomplishments.
Let me know, man. You too. Tell me if I do.
No, but I mean, I only wish your siblings and your parents could be in the audience and what you know, mine are in heaven. Yours are still around. Yeah. But if they, I mean, it'd be pretty damn cool. Yeah.
My dad, I told you my dad had a stroke.
And he's in Texas.
So he'll be coming here and we can
Cool. Well, you give him ring to City Hall, and we'll give him a video of this presentation, play it at home, play it on the table, and say, this is what we need. I'm okay.
I can keep you here chatting the whole time.
one's Sunny's?
This one.
Yeah, if you can put a napkin right there. All right, so you're good. So are we putting these at their new seats?
Put their names at their new.
Are they gonna sit down at their new spots? Okay, so that's Sunny's, and then those can go over there. Here, okay. You guys are welcome to go mingle too, but it is always
I know it. Seriously, Ed, I know. Smoke signals. I don't know whose it is, but it's a good cake. I don't know either. No, it's all right. It's a party. I got water. You know, I asked you about turning the application for summer help.
She got another job.
In and out.
Which is a great place.
$13 an hour.
And it's going up. We pay minimum. We're at 11 now.
Okay.
Well, that's okay. In and out. I'm trying to think. In and out is always paid a lot. It's going to be tough. This minimum. This is going to be so bad. Kids aren't going to do their jobs. Business owners aren't going to want to choose. You're going to make $50 an hour. You want someone that's going to be
Drive a car.
top notch.
That's how well. They never took. No, I know, but this one, you take care of it. Yeah. You gotta get like weeks. Yeah. You sleep overnight, you come back. Saturday night, you come home. Looking forward to it. I took the program with me, brought it over to the Brian. Showed it to him. I've never been on it. I've been on the other trip too. Yeah, we have. It's colder there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
We don't have a party to go to. So that's kind of the concept. You're okay with that? I'll call the schedule and then she'll give you the exact time, location, but that's kind of what we're thinking.
Okay. How's our finance? I know, aren't we all? We can't live on that. We talked to the guy, and he hoped to have it done the first quarter. Let's see. The PUC will approve it, and then we go forward. Oh, wow. You mentioned that it's not that it's true.
That's somebody from PUC.
No, somebody from the water.
PUC timeline is,
That's what I look for to help our cause more than pay those debts, pay off the bond. We'll see. You guys sure have me close to the door going out, that's all I know. Just like planning commission, just with fender skirts, you know? You're on television, right?
Yeah, that's, which way to look.
I see my wife left, I see Ray's wife left.
Oh, they're out there caking. Yeah. Judy's coming right back.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Just kidding. All right, ready? Are you ready?
Yep, yep.
Okay. We're back from the short recess. Next item, public comments. Mr. Stewart.
This is the time set aside for the public to address the city council on matters not listed on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the city council should come to the podium, be recognized by the mayor, and state your name for the record. If you wish to address the city council on an agenda item, you may do so by approaching the podium as we review that particular item. You'll be given a reasonable amount of time to address the city council.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak on a non-agenda item?
Good evening.
Good evening. State your name and please sign in.
My name is Emily Abad. I stand before you today to let you know about something I have experienced within the city of Bellflower. As you may recognize me, I was one of the Miss Teen Bellflower Princesses of 2018. Growing up in the city of Bellflower has been a blessing to me. As a young girl, I always looked up to the Miss Bellflower. You know, I remember asking them if they were real princesses and if they lived in castles. Never in my small mind did I ever think that a couple of years later I would be in their shoes. When I became aware that I could compete to be Miss Bellflower, I jumped to the opportunity of trying it. I was never a pageant girl, so I was really new to all of this. I remember going to practices and tripping over myself every night because I didn't know how to walk in heels. As the time went on, I got the pleasure to meet wonderful ladies competing with me, and I knew that at that moment I had created lifelong friends. On April 7th, the night I got crowned, it was one of the most amazing nights of my life. I was so excited for the events and all the volunteering that I would be doing for my city. Everything seemed fine until I started noticing that at every event, or almost every event that I went to, there was negative comments or wrongful attitudes. Almost at every event we attended, there was either something stated about someone or towards us. Every event that wasn't chaperoned by Sandra Espinoza, former president of Miss Bellflower, I would always get called on because either the color of my jeans was too light or apparently my clothes was extremely inappropriate. At the beginning, I thought that I was just getting corrected on my small mistakes. But after I noticed that this was a personal issue. Two events that I will never forget were when I went to the Ronald McDonald House and I attended the State of the City event. When I went to the Ronald McDonald House in Long Beach, the coordinator of Miss Bellflower by the name of Eden Hernandez was chaperoning along with Sandra Espinoza. I remember wearing a dress that I believe seemed appropriate for the event. I remember Eden complimenting me and telling me that it was nice. Once there, accidentally one of my court sisters spilled lemonade on me. When I tried getting up to clean myself, Eden raised her voice and yelled at me, telling me to pull down my dress. When I explained to her that I had lemonade all over it, she didn't care and she yelled at me, drawing attention from all of the people that were there. I felt very embarrassed and humiliated that she would yell to me in such a rude way in front of so many people. When I attended the State of the City event, Mickey Hernandez, Ian's mom, was chaperoning along with Sandra once again. I got to the event early, for I had missed school that day. And I was conversating with a lady downstairs at the Fire Museum about the organization and about how, accomplished I felt to be a part of this. And when Mickey arrived, the first thing that she did was yell in my face and tell me that the dress that I am wearing right now was not appropriate and that I was showing too much off. I tried asking her why, what was so wrong about it, and she put her hands in my face telling me that I was never to wear that dress again. When I brought up Megan, one of the past Miss Bellflower princesses, prior to my year, and I asked her why was she allowed to wear a similar dress to mine, she yelled at me again and said that I wasn't a part of that court and that it was none of my business. I remember Mickey calling her daughter, trying to get me sent home so I couldn't attend the event. The president, Sandra Espinoza, didn't think I should go home, yet Mickey decided to, keep making a big deal out of a situation that I did not think was big enough. Many things were wrong with the pageant. We either got in trouble because we weren't in a perfect formation for a photo, or because we didn't introduce ourselves by name and title every single time we came across an individual person. It was so stressful and sad to know that the organization I was so proud to be a part of could be so mean. There were many occasions where I questioned myself if I was the person starting problems. When Sandra resigned as president of Miss Bellflower, I had a bad feeling in my stomach. Knowing Sandra, she loved being a part of this organization. And it had to take something awful to push her to resign. Short after, I received my letter that I was no longer a part of the Miss Bellflower organization. And when I read this letter, everything came crashing down for me. I remember the day I received it in the mail. I had already bought in a gown that morning because I was going to attend a Bellflower Symphony event that same night. And when I read this, I started connecting the dots as to why Sandra resigned. I stopped receiving notification about events, and I stopped receiving my calendars to go to events. I remember calling my closest court sister and explaining what had happened to me and crying. I feel awful about the situation. I loved being part of this program. It helped me grow as a person and taught me life skills I will take with me forever. I became more confident, and I learned I was worthy of amazing things if I pushed myself to them. This was everything to me. I put my time and effort into being the best me I could be at every event. And I'm not here tonight to ask for my place back on the court. I'm here to thank various people, starting with my mom and my dad, because they would get me everything with hard efforts to be a part of this pageant. I want to thank the Kiwanis Club of Bellflower for showing me that banging spoons on a table could be so fun. And thank the Lions Club for the amazing events that they allowed the Miss Bellflower to take part of. I want to thank my court sisters for being with me every step of the way. I love them very much. And I want to thank Sandra Espinoza for guiding me through various obstacles thrown at me. But most importantly, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank the mayor, and I want to thank the city council members for allowing me to represent my beloved city of Bellflower. It was an honor to do so in the short time that I did, and I hope to one day be able to do it again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I just want to express my, I feel very sorry about your experience. And I hope that you can address that with the board of the Miss Bellflower. Okay, thank you so much. And I just want to kind of point out that Ms. Bellflower is very near and dear to my heart because we had this pageant a long time ago, and then it went away. And then for the 50th anniversary of the city of Bellflower, it came back. And my wife and myself were part of that committee. And our commitment was only for the 50th anniversary. And I'm glad that they continued on. But again, I'm really sorry about your experience. And hopefully the board can rectify that. Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Josh Murray. I'm here on behalf of Clifton Brackensake Library, 9945 Flower Street. I'd like to invite everyone in the community to attend our Winter Highlights Children's Program this Saturday from 2 to 2:45. Join us and Ina Bucknor Barnett for a fun multicultural holiday stories and sing-along activities event to get you in the holiday spirit. And this program is designed for children ages 3 and up. And I hope to see everyone there. I'll leave some of these flyers in the City Hall. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Josh. Anyone else? Okay. All right.
My name is Gerardo Abad. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members.
Good evening.
I'm a father of 3 kids, born and raised in the city of Bellflower. The reason why I'm here tonight before you all is to bring to your attention a problem that has been occurring within the city of Bellflower in the past few years. An organization known as the Miss Bellflower Pageant has served a purpose in our city to help young ladies become confident future leaders as well as better individuals. When my daughter became a part of this organization, I was extremely proud of her accomplishment. As time went by, and her reign began to take its course, I started noticing as a parent that something didn't seem adequate. My daughter will come home and complain about the behavior of some of the board members who will chaperone them to the events. This became a continuous topic spoken at home after all the events that she attended to, making me aware that something was not right within the program. My daughter Emily continuously mentioned the name of Eden and Mickey Hernandez. In my effort to try to fix things, I attempt to contact the coordinator, Eden Hernandez, to see what the issue between her and my daughter was. With no response from her to any of my calls, I let the situation go, hoping it will get resolved. To my surprise, it did only got worse. My daughter, since the age of 10, became involved with the Youth Cultural Arts Foundation, otherwise known as YCAF, where she remained as an active member until the program came to a closing. She then went on to participate in the Arts Aloud program directed by Alicia Medina, a teacher in our Bellflower School District. Emily is involved with California Advanced Pathways for Students, most commonly referred to as CALAPS, where she is in the health occupation class and was preparing herself to compete regionally in a program called Skills USA, representing the Bellflower School District. Seeing my daughter making an effort to get involved with the community in any way she could, it was hard for me to believe she was the one causing the problem within the Miss Bellflower organization. Emily started to explain in detail exactly what will happen at each event. Sometimes bursting in tears, my daughter will tell me that Eden Hernandez will embarrass her at events or sometimes speak to her in a rude manner in front of people. Because either Emily's attire was not appropriate enough for her or Eden will assume things that weren't true and accuse her of breaking the rules. In occasions, my daughter came home crying and telling me that Mickey Hernandez had yelled at her at the state of the city event. It's hard to believe this was done at every social event and managed to be kept a secret to the public eye. My daughter was relieved from her title on November 8th with no valid reasons or explanations to me as a parent, explaining why she was removed from the program. Both Mickey and Eden Hernandez managed to get away with everything they do in the organization, including breaking the bylaws stated when the organization was created. Emily was very proud to be part of the Miss Bellflower organization. My daughter did not deserve to be thrown the back door from the program and pretend like nothing happened, just to fulfill the selfishness and evilness of these two board members supported by the rest of the board. This was one of the reasons why Sandra Espinosa resigned as the Miss Bellflower president. She became tired of seeing so much hate from the same two people, including harassment to herself. She put her health at risk, ending in an emergency room due to a stroke, later resulting in a facial paralysis. With so much anger and impotence of not being able to run the program in a more positive and efficient way, she took the initiative and left. Sandra Espinosa sent her resignation letter on November 15, where she exposes awful things. For example, she states in her letter, "I feel that some members of the board are bigoted, prejudiced, and discriminatory bullies. Furthermore, it appears the board is selective when it wants to enforce the bylaws of the pageant." Mickey Hernandez gossips about people during the State of City lunch. Mickey talked about Fred Taylor from Crime Watch of Bellflower, stating how much she hates him and how sick she gets to her stomach every time she sees him, and making fun of his bald head because he didn't have his hat on. On numerous occasions, I have seen Eden and Mickey screaming at Emily. Mickey and Eden have told me that the girls are responsible if they are harassed. I feel these have been 2 years of hell. This is part of her letter. This program has been bullying and harassing core members, causing permanent emotional damage on the participants they decide to pick on. During the reign of the 2015, a court member in Miss Teen Bellflower, Princess Michaela Mathis, attempted against her life due to the harassment she was experiencing by one of the board members. Nothing was done about the situation. Thankfully, she was able to continue and finish her reign with the help of Sandra Espinosa, who was serving as a chaperone at the time. Unfortunately, this year, my daughter was the one who was picked on and eventually thrown out of the program. This organization, supposed to be doing something good for the community, but has done the complete opposite by destroying the vision young ladies have when they first enter the program. I'm here tonight humbly asking for help to prevent a tragedy, as bullying and harassment should not be tolerated in a program such as this. Young adults are barely taking a first step into adult life, and I believe no one should have award themselves the right to take away someone's dreams, much less lose a precious life of a young girl within our community. I am personally dealing with the emotional state of my daughter, which has affected me and the rest of my family. If there are any sponsors in the audience, please think twice about continuing to sponsor such program where bullying and harassment is being done to the participants representing the knowing, friendly city of Bellflower. Have a good night.
Okay, sir, I'm going to give the same advice. Please file your complaint with the board of Miss Bellflower competition, and then if it's not to your satisfaction, I'm sure that you can make an appointment with the city manager and see how we can facilitate your discussion with them. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Dennis Azevedo. I've lived off and on in Bellflower for over half my life. I've had the privilege of meeting all you guys at some time. Dan is the unofficial historian of Bellflower. I can ask him a question about something happened in the 50s, and Dan will go, oh yeah, this is what happened, and look at a building, and he's doing that. I've had the honor of knowing Ray for over 7 years, and Ray, you've got some big shoes to fill. I look forward to seeing you. And Ray, I've seen the city of Bellflower change for the better, and especially the last 4 years. I can't wait for In-N-Out to open up. And I go to a lot of city council meetings and water board meetings because of my job. And I want to say that you guys have the most happily working together city council I've seen. And Ray's thing would have been a big deal at some other cities I could give you the name of. And you guys are doing a fantastic job, and keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And all those wonderful things, Dennis, is not me, it's the team.
All right, last call. With that, we're going to go on to the next item, public hearing. Item 13A. Mr. Stewart.
This is consideration of possible action to conduct an annual public hearing to consider whether the 5% utility users tax, UUT, should continue in effect or be modified or repealed, and Mr. Hockman is going to give you the details.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For a number of years, many years, you've heard the long version of this presentation. Tonight will be the short version. A couple of points to make. Back in the 90s, mid-90s, as you all know, the public voted to have the UUT put in place both as a solid or stable funding source and as a significant funding source. And for some number of years that has been the case, but unfortunately for the last several that is no longer the case in either of those 2 points. The 3 lines you see before you, the blue line on top represents if we account for inflation and population growth since the 90s, it would be reasonable to expect that the UUT level of income would keep at pace with this blue line. Not so. If you look at the pink line in the middle, that's simply the index, the inflation rate. It would absolutely be reasonable to expect that a stable funding source would keep pace with inflation, and that's not so. The green line at the bottom represents what has come in under the UUT over the many years since the 90s, and in the last 7 years you've seen a significant decrease below both of those lines. All or most of this decline seems to be in the telecommunication industry, where we have more people cutting their landlines, more use of online communications that are not taxable, city or cell phone plans that have been changed to account more cost to the online and less billing for the taxable portion. So at least as far as we can tell, and anyone I've talked to says that trend does not look to be changed in the future. So kind of a bad news report again for the 7th year. So what the double problem is in light of decreasing revenues, we have increasing expenses and significant increasing expenses. As we look at Sheriff's Department, for instance, our most significant portion of our public safety budget, you can see over the years some of these fundamental units, the SAOs, motor deputy, 56-hour patrol deputy on the streets 8 hours a day for 7 days. Real significant cost. 2008 up to 2018, you can see the large jump, and the total's high, expensive. You know, we've got $10.72 million worth of sheriff services to fund, and we're not getting it as much as we used to from the utility users tax. And that's a serious problem, again, with no end in sight. I don't want to end on bad news. I'd like to end on good news. This is the familiar crime chart that you've seen many times before, but here we're projecting at the far right, 2018, we're looking at another decrease from last year. This appears, at least based on 10 months of data, to be a double-digit decrease. So if that can just hold throughout the holiday season, then we have something to celebrate at the end as well. Must have been the past mayor. Yeah. I find myself inclined to agree with you at this moment because I don't know what else to say.
Well, why don't you mention that it went up when I was mayor? Does that?
No. So my last slide is is simply that each November, the Public Safety Review Committee votes to recommend to council what they think should be done with the UUT. And in keeping with essentially almost every year, they said, frankly, that the policing program should continue in its present form, the UUT continue in its present form. And that does conclude my presentation.
Okay, thanks, Joel. Can you bring back the first slide? I just want to point out a couple of things.
That would be, which one?
The chart of,
graph?
there you go, the graph, there you go. Okay, I'm sure you're going to enlarge that, correct? Okay. I just want to point out a couple of things. One is the level of revenue in 2017-18 is about $3.3 million, correct?
Correct.
That's the same level as in 2003 and 4, just about.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to point out to our citizens that over the years, our population went up. But if you compare 2013 and 14 to 17, 18, it's basically flat. If you skip those years, we're at the same level as 15 years ago in terms of revenue. So there's one thing to consider, not counting inflation, not counting, that's in spite of population growth. Okay, and the last slide, the very last one. So I think I want to point out that we are trending well in terms of crime. It's been down since from this point here. And then over the years, it kept going down, and there's a little bit of spike here, but again, it went down again this year. So that's really good news.
That's right. And when the tax started, it's right about here. So that last that's when the tax started, and we started to go dramatically down from there.
Correct.
So,
And I just want to add that one of the reasons I think that the tax went down is because it's kind of a double-edged sword, because we're encouraging people to conserve energy. And people do. They replace their appliances with more energy-efficient appliances and then light bulbs. So that basically reduces consumption, which, again, reduces what the bills that they pay. And consequently, the tax also goes down. So, but that's good. That's good. So we need to find other ways to kind of make it up. Okay? Any question for Mr. Hockman?
no, I'd like to make a motion to continue the UUT.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Dunn, second by Mayor Pro Tem Garza to open the public hearing. Without objection, that will be the order. And I would like to speak about this item. Okay, I guess everybody's happy.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Dunn, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Garza to close the public hearing. Call the roll, please.
I made the motion.
Oh, without objection, that will be the order. There was a motion.
Yeah, we kind of got out of order. We made the motion before the public hearing.
Do it
Yeah,
again.
there was. We're so fast. Okay, let me just recap.
I'll make a motion to continue UUT.
Second.
Okay, you got it, Kurt.
Motion by Councilmember Dunn, seconded by Councilmember Coops to consider, who? No, that was the, to close the public hearing.
They had jumped ahead of time. They
Yeah.
made statements, so they're okay.
Okay, are we okay? This is my first time this year, so we should be okay.
I was the one that messed you up. I
To
apologize.
continue the UUT. All right. Now, call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Amata,
Aye.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza,
Aye.
Mayor Santinas.
Aye. You almost slipped there, huh?
You got to get better, Sonny.
I know. All right, next item, there's no ordinances and resolutions for consideration. Next item is item 15A. Mr. Stewart.
This is consideration of possible action to approve CR&R Incorporated's 2018 annual rate adjustment request for solid waste collection services. Mr. Gurecki has the staff report.
Honorable Mayor and council members, have a
brief PowerPoint slide presentation for you. Just as background, in 2011 is when the city entered into its revised and restated franchise agreement with CR&R. The agreement allows CR&R to submit an annual rate adjustment request based on approved methodology that includes indexes for fuel, labor, equipment, disposal, and transformation. CR&R submitted an annual rate increase request for the 2018 year. And this is the proposed rate adjustment, as you'll see. So the city staff has reviewed their rate adjustments, and all the methodology all works out and is correct. We're seeing a 3.1% increase on the cart service, 2.9 for the bin, and the roll-off and the processing as well. Based on the percentage changes, the impact on the typical monthly charges would be as follows, and these are for our most common accounts that we have. The standard cart, which is typically single family, the current rate is $18.30. It'll go up 57 cents to $18.87. And then our most common multifamily / commercial bin service is the 3-yard bin once a week. That rate will go from $126.81 to $130.49. And just real brief, here's a quick slide of the rate history that we have with CR&R, going all the way back to 2011. So single family started out at $17.73, and then the commercial was right around $107.18. It's incrementally gone up over the years. To date, the 2018 request, you see over the past 7 years, has gone up a total of $1.14. So again, we're faced with retroactive rates. CR&R did submit their annual rate adjustment request on time, which was May 31st. As you recall, we were going through the long process with the 2017 request that dealt with the implementation of organics and several of the other commercial accounts that we had to implement as part of the state mandates that are coming before us here before the 2020 year. CR&R, as a result, continued to charge their 2017 rates in good faith when we entered into our new calendar year, which started on September 1st. So a retroactive amount will be added to the proposed rates to cover the period for September 1 through December 31st. Again, they were charging the 2017 rates. So the way the math works out, it's 57 cents a month times 4 months for a total of $2.28. So the standard cart accounts will see a one-time retroactive amount in their January, February bill for $2.28. The same methodology, just different rates for the commercial and multifamily bins as well. So that total retro amount for the 4 months will be $14.72, and that'll be a one-time bill for them for the 2008 year. And then we have our charts that we show every year, our rate comparisons with surrounding cities. Again, here's a single-family residential standard cart rate. Currently, we're the third lowest in the area at $18.30. When we go to the proposed rate, we'll be the 5th lowest. I think it's important to note that we are the lowest out of all the CR&R franchises in this area. And the same holds true for the commercial yard bins as well. Currently, Pecos is the only one that's a little lower than us. We'll move up again we'll be the 4th lowest at that point. And then again, here's the commercial 3-yard recycling bin. And again, there's not much change in terms of our rate currently to propose in terms of where we line up with the other cities. And same with the organic waste as well, the 65-gallon cart. We're going to be the 2nd lowest out there. And then organic waste recycling for the 2-yard bin 1 time a week. You can see that as well. So Proposition 218, the rates proposed by CR&R are below the maximum rates approved pursuant to the 5-year Proposition 218 protest proceeding that the city held on September 22nd, 2014. And the subsequent 2-year Proposition 218 proceeding we just held this past June to implement the new recycling programs for multifamily and commercial bin accounts. So Prop 218 proceeding is not required as part of this rate request. So with that, the recommendation is to approve CR&R Incorporated's annual rate adjustment request for 2018 year. or alternatively discuss and take other action related to this item. Be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Dan Stepanian from CR&R is in the audience with us this evening, and he'd be more than welcome to answer any questions you have too.
Thank you, Len. I just want to kind of point out that this item on the agenda for tonight, the discretion of the part of City Council is very limited. It is basically just confirming that CR&R followed the process in terms of calculating the raise. But in terms of the mechanics, all those kind of things, those are spelled out in the franchise agreement. So I just want to confirm with you a couple of things. One is, did this revised rate, did CR&R follow the format spelled out in the franchise agreement?
Yes, they did.
Just like a public hearing.
Correct.
Did they follow the indices that was
Yes.
used? Okay. Were the corrections accurate? The calculations?
The adjustments are all accurate,
calculations
correct.
someone verified those things and they seem to be correct?
Yes.
All right, good. So that's all we need to do. Just for information, if you can show the slide, Len, about the comparison on the three-yard bin.
Yes.
I just for information, I talked with Len today, and not for tonight, but sometime in the future, I'd like to find out, no, the next one.
Oh,
next slide.
actually there, it's for the
Next
recycle
slide.
bin.
I want to find out why Paramount and Pico Rivera is much lower than ours. So if you can investigate that and report back to the City Council?
Correct,
why
yeah, they're
that happened.
significantly lower than everybody. And
Yes,
then Downey
exactly.
still offers a free recycling bin. That's why they're at $0 for that category as well.
Good, okay. So in terms of the retroactive adjustment, so we're going back 4 months, right, from September to December.
Yes,
Those will be billed in January and February. That's how I read it.
correct. So the retroactive amount for the 4 months total, again, for the standard card is $2.28. That will all be included in addition to the regular bill as part of January and February. There'll be a line item on the bill, and it will say retroactive rate for September through December for $2.28. One-time fee. After that, it will adjust right back to their normal rates.
Is it one time or split into two?
One time. There's only one billing cycle for the 2 months for the standard card.
No, as far as the 4 months, will you split it into January and February, or?
No,
just
there's
basically
only
just one
January,
cycle?
the standard card's billed every 2 months.
Okay, so the full amount will be billed in one.
In one, it'll be part of the January,
Will it be a
February.
separate line item for the retro
Yeah, well,
adjustment?
it'll be noted on there that it'll be a retroactive amount rate
Okay.
adjustment.
That's good.
Correct.
So it's going to be clear to our ratepayers what they're paying for.
Yes.
Correct.
And
Okay.
this time CR&R we had a little snafu with the last one, but we were able to
Right, I know.
correct it and stuff, so.
So I'll make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Any question for for Len?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the CR&R's 2018 annual rate adjustment.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Dunn, seconded by Councilmember Hamada to approve CR&R's 2018 rate adjustment request. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dutton,
Aye.
Councilmember Amata,
Aye.
Councilmember Coops,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza,
Aye.
Mayor Santinez.
Aye. Next item is item 15B. Mr. Stewart.
This is consideration of possible action to authorize the city manager to execute agreement file number 822 with CityNet and a form approved by the city attorney to provide homeless services, provide homeless prevention and rapid rehousing services. And just because I can't talk, Mr. Hockman's going to take over for me right now. So.
Ready, go. Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just wanted to give a little background, I guess, for the benefit of the audience as to kind of how we've gotten here. I believe there's going to be some discussion on this item, so I think it's best just to get to the discussion. But by way of background, for quite a while now, a number of residents have been indicating their concern with homelessness, like residents in virtually every city in Southern California and beyond. What we've been trying to deal with it, I know council has, then Mayor Dutton scheduled a special meeting to address the issue. We've been working on a homeless plan collectively with Paramount, and we've been meeting with agencies that are in the business of dealing with homelessness, taking tours, both council members and city staff, doing research for best practices. All of that's been going on behind the scenes. And one of the meetings that seemed to bear some fruit as we were working on this was a meeting with an agency based in Anaheim, CityNet. CityNet is an agency that has been dealing head-on with homelessness in that part of the county, North Orange County. And in meetings with both the city of Santa Ana, city of Anaheim, their name came up again as having done a good job and are still working. Obviously, that this problem isn't going to go away. Still working in that area. So there was a meeting held, and Mr. Dutton and Councilmember Coops, of course, were in attendance to hear that. And they seem to have some good energy. They seem to offer some fresh ideas. They seem to demonstrate some tangible results as to what they've been able to accomplish. And so it seemed reasonable for us to pursue an agreement with them to see if they could add services to Bellflower to complement what is going on presently with agencies such as Kingdom Causes, not be competitors, but simply be additional resources to do additional work within the city. And so out of that came the notion of meeting and deciding what's a reasonable time frame for them to demonstrate, I guess, demonstrate value. And because this is a lot of relationships are involved in dealing with homeless individuals and helping them come to a place where they decide to want help. CityNet thought it best that a 2-year time frame be allowed to give them a chance to prove what they can do. And as part of that process, they would want to come in, they would want to meet with law enforcement, get a sense of who's in our city in terms of homeless, meet with homeless advocacy providers such as Kingdom Causes, get in concert with them as best they can to add service, and again, not compete, but to add service, add value. So that's what brings us here this evening is simply this is one of council, can be one of council's responses to the citizen survey that said homelessness is an issue. That's up to you to decide, but I just wanted to provide a background as to how we got here. And from that, I'll conclude my report and then open up to questions. Just so you know, Vice President Matt Bates, Matt Barnes was a friend in high school, he's not here tonight. Matt Bates from CityNet is here to answer any questions and take comments.
So he's here tonight?
He certainly is.
All right. You mentioned that you're working on best practices. Are there any other solutions that you evaluated?
Well, as you probably know, and I'm going off script at this point, homelessness is a bit of two main components, really. There's the idea of getting individuals into housing, obviously, and there's a law enforcement component to deal with those parts of homelessness that are illegal, that is the crimes committed. We've been working with both sides of this equation for years now, and we just think that giving more resource to the homeless, try to work with people to get them in locations and get them in services is really the only reasonable choice that we have. And one of the, I'll call it a truism that I continue to hear from various different service providers is you can't really go out and deal necessarily with addiction and deal with mental health issues in the field. It apparently tends to work much better to get someone into stable environment, housing, and then begin to work on the underlying causes of homelessness. So that's where finding places and services to get to first is being spoken of as really the best way to address the issue. And that comes from a number of, like I say, service providers that I've been meeting with. So we think adding to what we're presently doing in that area with Kingdom Causes, PATH, and so forth might be the best way to spend some resources at this time.
Have you compared their services with other service providers in the area?
Well, we don't have a track record yet, so what we're hearing is they're finding success in these other communities, and now we'd like to see if they can have that same level of success to add to Bellflower. We already have some of those exact services, but in the meeting they spoke about some different methods, some different resources, some different collaborative efforts that they've been able to leverage in the North Orange County region. And I'm sure Matt would be able to speak to that, maybe answer the question better than I am, but that's kind of what we think is something we can do now.
Okay. Any question for Mr. Hoffman before
Yeah,
bringing
I'd like to start some dialogue since
Okay.
I was in on that meeting, and this is something I kind of started, once we got that survey from the residents, and we all kind of knew our transient population was a problem, and then we got really beat up pretty bad on a survey we put out before the community. And then as it evolved, I think it was Councilmember Coops that knew of an entity that in Anaheim that actually got their foot in the door, and actually this group is actually responsible for, and they'll tell you if I'm wrong or not, but removing and relocating all the transient population and campers that were on the Santa Ana River bed that's by Angel Stadium and Orange. And, you know, as we all heard that in the news and the radios for quite some time. As it's not no secret that I've been preaching we got to do something with this, and I've been doing it a long time. It's the transient population that don't want help or you can't get help. There's people out there that are mentally disturbed, that don't want mental help. You can't put them in jail. Courts won't, if they do go arrested, the courts kick them out, they're back on the street. It's what we see every day going to work and going home from work in a community. A community shouldn't be like that. We have faith-based organizations that do a great job on helping people that want help. I want to do something with the people that don't want help. That's what's tarnishing a community. And this individuals that we met with had a lot of great ideas, and there hasn't been anybody that could show us data on what a homeless person costs society. This is the first time that I saw something, and I'm recollecting somewhere around $8,000 a year each transient costs the community, the taxpayers. Well, 100 transients at $8,000 a year is a whole lot of money. It's a whole lot more money that you could pay to try to help them or do something with it. And I was sold in this meeting and asked, can you get a contract here within next Wednesday and put it before the council, because I'm one that things take a really long time in city government to get done. I pushed for it, they got the contract in. I wanted you colleagues to weigh in on it tonight, and if we choose to go that way, it's something that we can start off at the first of the year. But with that, that's my spiel, and I maybe want to hear from the agency.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, Mr.
Councilman
Mayor.
Ahumada?
Yes, quickly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that CityNet is a Kingdom Causes DBA, and I just wanted to disclose that I'm a current seated member of Kingdom Causes Bellflower, which is a separate nonprofit. It is, my understanding, it's separate. So I receive no financial gain from being on the board. So again, I believe that I can continue seated here, and I'll look to the city attorney to confirm that.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, as a voluntary member of a nonprofit board receiving no compensation for sitting on the board, it is an exception to the conflict of interest codes.
All right, thank you.
And just for clarification, they're separate entities.
They are separate,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, they're totally separate.
Yeah, totally separate. So that was one point I wanted to clear up. Joel, it's, again, my understanding for professional services, the RFP process is not required.
Correct. We spoke with different individuals, agencies, but officially having to go through an RFP is not required.
No. And last, CityNet, is this the first time in this county that they'll be doing such services?
Great question. Turns out that there is that strong presence, as I say, in North Orange County, but there isn't any in LA County that I'm aware of at this time. So if Bellflower were to move in this direction, it would be first for working with this particular agency.
Yeah, may I butt in, because that's what was said in our meeting, that they do not have any contracts in LA County. I believe it was Riverside and Orange.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other comments? Mayor Pro Tem Garza.
No problem. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Get used to it.
So I wanted to state for the record that on December 4th, Mr. Hockman, myself, and Chrissy Padilla-Berkey from Kingdom Causes, and I, we took a tour of Santa Ana's new shelter. I think it opened up on November 15, I think. Got a lot of press. It was in the LA Times. So we did take that tour, so I appreciate my colleagues bringing this item. I'm absolutely encouraged, and I'm thankful for the commitment and speed with which Ray Dutton brought this. I think the community has spoken through the surveys and in numerous comments that this is an issue that they want to resolve, so I'm encouraged with the fact that we're starting on this road, so thank you for leading this. First question for Mr. Hockman. Can you go over the breakdown of the cost, how this is going to be funded? What's proposed to be funded?
Right, that's up to the council, but staff has identified some funding sources that I think would be agreeable. Kingdom Causes has been receiving $162,500 annually. That's from the Low Moderate Income Asset Fund. There's more available in that fund, as well as money from the recently licensed cannabis operators, where a portion of their license fees were put toward drug rehabilitation. And though council has still the task to fine-tune what qualifies for drug rehab, using those funds for drug rehabilitation, I think there's a strong nexus between some of the people that are homeless that we're dealing with and drug addiction. So it seems to me that would be another source that can be tapped. And so we can keep Kingdom Causes whole. We can completely fund CityNet and still have money left over in funds that are designated just for these purposes. So that's what's nice about it. There's no general fund anticipated. It's spending money that we need to spend in these areas.
Okay, thank you. I know that my tour, I believe a couple of my colleagues took some tours of to visit homeless sites and homeless population that we have in our city. I know I haven't been able to do that yet. Either, I think the first time got rescheduled because of the fires. Correct. Mm-hmm. And then the second time was the rains last week. So right. I'm scheduled to go on mine this Thursday. So. Correct. I am absolutely encouraged with the fact that the proposal that's before us includes a homeless census. I know that's something that that myself and my colleagues have been asking for as we've been discussing this issue. So I'm really excited about that. I am curious whenever the CityNet representative comes here, I'm absolutely curious as to how it is that they've, how you actually help the homeless neighbors exit the streets, and then how you connect homeless neighbors with city agencies, but I'm not sure if I'm there.
Can you hold on
yet.
for a second?
Yeah.
Let's ask Mr. Hockman first, and then
Sure.
we're going to bring in Mr. Barnes, right?
No, Bates.
Oh, Bates.
Barnes.
Oh, yeah.
Hope that doesn't
Matt
stick.
Bates, okay, all right.
Go to high school.
So, and just to reiterate, I pose that just to kind of get him thinking. I know we're addressing Mr. Hockman right now, so. So I'm curious about that. I'm also curious to see about the two full-time equivalent employees, what their hours of operation would propose to be, as well as are these two full-time equivalent employees, are they there now? Are they ready to go? Or is there like a learning curve, like training? I'm not sure how quickly this would get up.
Can you hold on to questions? Maybe Mr. Coops can have questions for Mr. Hockman?
No, I think that this is all.
You good?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay, okay, all right, so go ahead now.
Okay.
So it's Mr. Bates. Can you sign in, please? And
Sure. Yeah, for the record, Matt Bates, Vice President of CityNet. Our office is 2121 West Crescent Avenue in Anaheim. Thanks for allowing me to be here, and I appreciate the invitation and welcome any questions.
Go ahead.
So I guess the first question would be like, again, first of all, I'm really happy about the census. Frankly, I've gone on record saying that the current census data for the homeless, not only here, but I think in general, is unreliable. And so I'm really excited about the fact that we would be conducting our own census to figure exactly how many people are homeless in our city and what is the causation of why they're homeless, whether it's financial hardship or substance abuse, mental health, multiple issues here. So I'm really interested on that. But my first question is, how is it that you're going to help the homeless exit the streets? What do you do?
So, so we're a street outreach team. So we engage in street outreach where we go out into the streets, dealing with homeless neighbors who are the HUD definition of homeless, which is generally those that you would see on the streets. The Department of Education uses a broader definition of homeless that would include families that are living doubled up and those kinds of things. But we're talking about unsheltered homeless, essentially, out on the streets. And so our teams go out with law enforcement, without law enforcement, and engage homeless neighbors, begin to build relationships. Typically, we would also set up an inReach in the cities that we work, maybe at a community center or a library or at a nonprofit or at a church, where maybe there's already some homeless activities going on, homeless services activities going on, and we could add case management to it. So the outreach is really just the very front end of engagement, trying to catch people as soon as we can to the point where they're appearing homeless in the city, and then from there it's a process of building trust and building relationships, and then through the agencies in the continuum of care making the right connections to shelter and to housing. So that's a case management, housing navigation task. And so it's and really the answer is we find that that the difference between being unsheltered and sheltered makes all the difference. So we would love to exit people directly into permanent supportive housing, let's say, where they've got an apartment and they've got a case manager that's going to follow up with them once a week, and they're going to be stable, and they've got the rent paid for the foreseeable future. We would love that. HUD would consider that a permanent street exit. And whenever we can, we make those exits. But what we found is that even exiting people from the streets into an emergency shelter makes a tremendous difference. As was mentioned, that's part of the Housing First philosophy, which is the national best practice on homelessness, evidence-based best practice, which is that you first house, and then once housed, then you engage in case management, which could encompass addictions and mental health issues and behavioral health issues and physical ailments and education and job training and on and on and on, that those things those activities are engaged in much more effectively when an individual is housed. So what we try to do is as quickly as possible get them into shelter, even if it's an emergency shelter, because from there we see outcomes that improve tremendously and much more rapidly than when people are on the streets trying to put together a case management plan to get them to a permanent housing location. So I guess the short answer is we just use whatever resources are at our disposal in terms of shelters, because we find that makes a tremendous difference in terms of long-term outcomes.
Thank you, and I'm glad that you presented both of them. The model that's being proposed for Bellflower is a non-shelter at this point, right? It's the engagement component and pairing them up with resources?
Correct. So we don't operate a shelter. We don't have direct access to any beds. We don't operate a rehab program or anything like that. So our task is really to be creative and effective at understanding all of the different resources that exist. Everything from county and federally funded shelters and agencies, all the way to nonprofit organizations, faith communities, family relocations, and then everything in between. So we try to, we learn as best we can the availabilities that exist within that continuum, and then from there we work hard to make the right connections so that the right people get to the right beds.
Okay. And on the question of the full-time equivalents of 2 proposed personnel, what would their hours of operation be in our city?
Correct. So some of that would be to be determined. What we'd like to do, especially the first 6 to 12 months, really, is we like to have a steady outreach with law enforcement. We find that partnership is critical to solving homelessness in the city. And initially, law enforcement are really the best source of knowledge, because only homeless neighbors and law enforcement are on the streets 24/7. And so you've got resource there that can provide local knowledge, that can provide access, because there are plenty of places that homeless neighbors are living that are kind of out of the public eye, and that are frankly out of places that are legal to go. And so without law enforcement, we couldn't send our case managers to them legally. And then finally, they can offer security in the rare situations where there's an issue that we need the security element to safely conduct our work. So, so what that means is it's usually, it's effective to do those, very often it's effective to do those at night. And so we may have a one night a week outreach, where a case manager and an outreach specialist from our team would go out with law enforcement. That would maybe be a 4-hour event. And then we would supplement that typically with an inReach, which probably would not include law enforcement because sometimes it's useful to not have them there to engage that conversation. An inReach during the day, and then be available Monday through Friday, sort of 9 to 5 business hours, to respond to needs as they arise within the city, to attend meetings, to reach out to collaborative partners that we're working with to try and comprehensively address homelessness in the city.
Okay, and we have a solid law enforcement team in our city, so I'm confident that you'll establish a nice relationship with them. So in terms of the people that you have in mind, I don't know if you have anybody in mind yet for these two positions. Are they fully trained, or are you going to need some time to get them up to speed?
Yeah, so we have a team of close to 50 overall, because we work in 2/3 of the cities in Orange County. We work in 2 cities in Riverside County, and just came off a contract we were working with 5. Our offices are only 10 miles from here, so we work in Buena Park, which is just sort of right down the road. So we have people that live in the area, that live nearby, and so we could start January 1st with a team that would come out of trained, effective people that are working in other projects that could come out, kind of get the lay of the land. These would be actually, some of the more senior people on our team that are experienced, and then over time we would hire locally to fill those positions. But we would start with the people that we have, and the training would be both ways, so that anybody that we would hire here, we would cross-train down in Orange County, in the cities, well, not that far, but just right across the border, really, to sort of, so that we could train and manage that local staff.
Okay, great. And then to staff, how do you envision CityNet interacting with Kingdom Causes in these efforts? I'm not sure if there's going to be a duplication effort. I don't know if there's going to be defined roles, or is that still being determined? I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it needs to be resolved. I think that would be part of the initial, not only a law enforcement relationship, but also within the city, who's already working in these areas and how to figure out who's going to do what. So there isn't wasted duplication of efforts, but there is emphasis where it needs to be, and make sure everything's covered, and maybe covering it to a greater degree. Those kinds of things will be worked out. It's just something that would need to take place early on in the relationship, contract relationship.
Got it. And again, I'm encouraged because one of the things that we got from the survey that was done months ago was that our residents wanted the service, right? And they were willing to, we had a mandate from them through the survey that they wanted us to spend money on this, or to invest in this effort. So the fact that we're already investing in Kingdom Causes, and now additionally, we potentially would be investing in CityNet, or whoever selected, is encouraging. And again, it's in following with what our residents have stated. So,
And I might add also, because you mentioned the census, one of the things that we've done more than 20 of these for cities all across Southern California, and one of the things that's different than a point-in-time count, which also we're contracted with Orange County to do the point-in-time count for 2019. There's a difference in methodology, there's a difference in time and focus and energy. HUD has very specific mandates on the point-in-time count, and so you're just very limited in time. Especially Southern California counties are huge, and they have lots of people, and you have to cover them all, literally in the last 10 days of January. You're supposed to count, one night of record is supposed to be the night. So it's just a monumental task. When we engage in a citywide census, we can spend more time, on the front end mapping the territory, but on the back end, we can ask more demographic information, and we can create a by name list of all the unsheltered homeless neighbors that we can then use with the collaborative agencies to just make sure that nobody's falling through the cracks. So if there's 100, this is a nice round number, let's say there's 100 homeless neighbors, we would look to see, well, who is Kingdom Causes Bellflower already working with, who is, other agencies are working with, who are falling through the cracks, who could use additional resource, because very often our experience is that especially with chronic homeless neighbors, multiple agencies need to be involved, and multiple agencies can effectively be involved. But by having a census with a list of names and demographics, you can identify individuals' needs, and you can ask the question, what are we doing about, so-and-so who's on this corner? Who's the last person to talk to them? And then you can manage those cases, that list down to 0, collaboratively. So Our approach is always to work collaboratively with the agencies that are local, that are countywide, that are regional, that are part of the faith community, that, you know, that aren't connected to any sort of city or government funding. But one of the critical elements of that is that we use that census as a list that we can manage against, with the goal of managing it down to zero.
That's great. Has your organization, right now as Anaheim is expanding their efforts, I believe they want to get, how many shelters? One open before the holidays, I think?
Right.
Right? Are you doing that? Or is
No,
somebody else doing
we're
that?
one of the referral agencies.
Okay.
So we're not the operating agency.
Okay.
But they've got two that are in the pipelines. Salvation Army is building a big facility. And then in the meantime, so they're working to get that one up and running sometime in January. And then they want to get a second shelter, a temporary emergency shelter, up and running that would be operated by Illumination Foundation. And CityNet, having a contract with the city, would be a referral agency to both shelters. Those shelters are going to operate not as walk-up facilities, and so you'll need an agency that can refer and transport clients from the streets into those shelters. And so we'll work closely with Salvation Army and Illumination Foundation to match the right clients with the right shelter beds, and then arrange the transport and take people and refer, transport, and enter them into those shelters.
Okay. And so have you interacted with Judge Carter?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to segue to my next portion. So if you don't mind, can you put up the PowerPoint? And so I know that the model that we're considering tonight is not this. But the reason I want to show my colleagues and our residents is because for those of you that don't know, Judge Carter, David Carter, federal judge, really kind of, in a way, is kind of guiding the conversation as to how it is that cities can address the issue of homelessness, and kind of like the rules, right? Kind of like the defining those lines of what we can and can't do. So he's a really influential person in this discussion. And so on the 4th of December, when we took that tour, our host happened to, of the tour, asked us if we would like to meet the judge. And he's in Santa Ana, his courtroom is in Santa Ana. Just having the opportunity to meet this gentleman was an honor. And so we took the opportunity, like we should. And so I was really, first of all, I was proud of the fact that, as representing Bellflower, he shared with us that there's been numerous people that have been wanting to meet with him and he hasn't met with them, right? And including one from a large city that I won't name the name, but number 2 city in the country. Their mayor has been wanting to meet with him, and he has declined meeting with them, but yet he took our meeting. And in fact, we're the first LA County city that he actually has met with, because he is so visible in Orange County. I think a lot of us, including myself, I think assumed that he was just focused on Orange County homeless issues with cities in Orange County. But the reality, I think expectation, the wide expectation is that he is actually going to start having influence over homelessness issues in LA County as well. And he all but said that when we met with him. So the reason I'm sharing this is because he, while very kind, he was very stern. And he did not miss words in the fact of what he is looking for in terms of solutions to the homeless dilemma that we face. And so what I'm going to show is what he is saying, this is good for me. Anything that's not this is going to be a problem. And he absolutely shared with us that he will have no sympathy and no remorse in going after any city that does not do this. So I know we're not considering this tonight, but I just want to share with my colleagues that worst case scenario, this is probably where we're going to go. But again, that's not for tonight to consider. So if you don't mind just scrolling. So what we did is we, and if you look it up, I think the facility's name is The Link.
Correct.
Right? So this is in Santa Ana. It's, I think, in the tri-point where Santa Ana, Tustin, and Irvine meet, like right next to the Great Park. So this location, and I wish I would have taken a picture of the outside of this facility. It's located in an industrial park. From the outside, you could not tell that this was in there, right? We met with the owner of the actual property. who was there, and we met with the operator of this facility, Mercy House, right? And so the entrance point is the top left corner. That's an open quad area. You see doorways that go, the one on the left goes to the bed facilities, I believe to the women, right? It's just women. The one on the far left is the one, kind of like the 11 o'clock is the one that's for the men, I think single men, if I remember correctly. And then you have facilities more on the right, but it's clean. There's murals just to spruce up the place. It's temporary in nature. It's not meant to be a permanent homeless homeless facility. Right to the right of that one, the one that's on the top right, that's the in-processing. So whenever there are homeless people that come in, that's where, first of all, they go through the bottom left corner, which is a metal screening facility. So they have security there, and everybody that enters the facility is screened for weapons and everything else, that paraphernalia they should not have. Then they get directed to the top right corner where you have private booths where the person that's brought in or comes in is interviewed to start a file on them to figure out why it is that they're homeless and try to see if they qualify for services, for public services, and to start that process of just praying them up. So after that, that's when they start, giving them a location to be able to stay temporarily. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, you have like a staging facility where they have the deliveries and such. So, and if you don't mind going to the next one. And so what you have is a bedding. As a military man, it looks very familiar. So, but you have these beds, and again, they're clean, these bedding areas. They have personal materials that are underneath, but again, it's high vaulted ceiling. It's supposed to be an industrial complex. And then, so you have the top left is the women, the top right is the men's, and then the bottom one, I believe, is the one for couples. Joel?
Looks like there was couples and then there was some families. I think that's the couples area.
So it's the way it looks. So they segregate them, and then they actually, but they don't segregate them for the causes, right? Like it's intermingled, like the mental health with substance abuse and financial issues, they're all intermingled in here. They don't have enough shelters to my understanding of trying to say this shelter facility is for mental health clients only, and this one's so that's not there yet, but I think that's the vision for the future. And if you don't mind going to the next one. And then so on the top left, you have basically a common area, a TV for people to be able to, in the evening, watch TV, interact with each other. And then the top right is kind of like the left side of the top left one. Again, very clean. It's the facility is maintained by Mercy House itself, so it's not maintained by the residents themselves. And then you have latrines, restrooms, showers up on the left-hand side. One of the things that they kept telling us was if and when anybody gets to the stage to make sure to work with the judge to get waivers on the ADA in case if the facility is not ADA accessible. And the judge said he was absolutely open to that and working with facilities on that. And then on the bottom right, obviously, is the restrooms. Again, clean, state-of-the-art. And if you don't mind just scrolling to the next one. On the top left, you have basically their child facility, where people sit down and eat. And then, again, just numerous art. On that door, in the bottom picture, in the left side, that was a doorway. It was separate, but that was for single mothers, I believe, or mothers that were alone with children. It wasn't a familiar unit. And so one of the people that we saw in there, I didn't take pictures of the residents for respect, but one of the people that was in there must have been like maybe a 3-month-old baby with her. So if you don't mind scrolling to the next one. And then again, top left, it's basically a cafeteria facility, not unlike like TGIS with us where the food is cooked elsewhere, but it's brought here to be staged and warmed up. So they don't have an actual a kitchen here. The laundry facility on the top right is, the residents do not use that. They actually get laundry service. So they get their clothes and they get them in bags with names, and then Mercy House personnel actually washes them. And I believe the reason is to make sure that the equipment is maintained and.
Councilman Branco,
Yeah.
is this going to be part of the solutions that they're proposing, or?
No. My intent with all this is to show, as we consider this, it's not to ask for this, but just to show you as colleagues and the residents of what the prevailing voice in this topic is asking for.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in the bottom obviously is the people eating, and then if you don't mind, we're almost done with this. And then I believe we're in the last two pictures. So when people come in, these bins here are where they actually store their personal belongings. So each one of them has a different combination, and they're all staged outside. I just happen to take pictures of the ones that were not organized, but there's very organized. There's like a smoking area outside. You cannot come into this facility freely. The only way to come into this facility is to actually be brought in by somebody from law enforcement, or I believe there's a bus system that has like 3 stops where if you're homeless and you desire help, you're able to go to the stop. There's a bus that comes in and it brings you straight in. So from the outside, you wouldn't even know that this facility is in there because you don't have that in and out. I think the only way to get in and out is, again, through the bus, law enforcement, or if you have a bicycle. And that's it. So I believe that was the last picture. So the reason I'm showing this again is because I just wanted to share with everyone that the judge basically said that this model, to him, gives the homeless population 3 choices. And he will absolutely support any city that does this. The choices they have is 1, they accept the service that's being provided here, right? 2, if they don't, they get arrested, right? And the third one is, if none of these works for them, then he expects them to not be in the city, right? So the residents only have those 3 options. You accept help, you get arrested, or don't be in the city. And I think that goes in line in a way in the future of what the residents here want, right? I think we have a very benevolent city who wants to help. And I think it's reflected in our institutions of faith here and a lot of our residents that help the homeless. But at the same time, I also hear from residents that there's a lack of respect from the population. There's defecation in public. There's urination in public. There's activities that they don't reflect the values of the community, right? And I think a lot of us, including myself, want to get this population help. We want to get them help, right? And so the judge has told us, I will support you and I will let you take them off the street if you do this. If you don't do this, I won't have sympathy for you when you come to me and try to get them off the streets, right? And so what he's relying on is the August ruling of the Boise, correct me, Mr. City Attorney? What is it, August? The August ruling of Martin versus City of Boise, Idaho?
Yes, it's the Ninth Circuit case.
Right. So the one thing going forward that I would ask is that as we start servicing this population, what I'm afraid of, frankly, is that we're going to start having neighboring cities dump people in our city, right? If you do a good job, which I'm confident you will, that may attract people to start bringing them here, right? And so how do we solve that? So I don't have a solution, but I pose that to you to figure it out. I know that with them, in Santa Ana, in this facility, what they do is when they in-process them in those booths, they have a checklist of how it is that they have a connection to Santa Ana, because at the end of the day, Santa Ana is paying for this. Right? They're paying millions of dollars for this facility. And so they're going to spend Santa Ana funds on Santa Ana issues, not on testing issues, not on Irvine issues. And so they have a way of being able to filter and say, okay, we're able to help you, but we're not going to help you, right? And so I would ask that to be worked out as we move forward. And then the last thing I have is how is this proposal tonight going to fit within the homeless plan that we're working on right now? I know that staff is hard working on that, and you've been working on it for a while, so I would like to know that.
Well, I don't know. I think it'll just be an an addition that suggests that we're going to have more of this type of support. So we have other agencies already named. We're going to add another one and talk about how they'll divide up the work. Maybe we'll wait and let them get acquainted so that we know better how to define it and then be more specific in there. That's certainly something we can do. But it won't be a radically new piece. It'll just be more service of the type that I think we're looking for.
Okay, great, thank you. And again, just last comments, Mr. Mayor, is that, again, I know this is not what is before us tonight as a council, but I think if things aren't effective with this model that we're going to build here, I think worst case scenario, we're going to have to go to this if the judge keeps pushing for it. And if we do, that'll avoid our city having litigation and being penalized, which is what he's exactly starting to do in Orange County and having no sympathy. So again, I just wanted to share that in full disclosure, but that completes my comments tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your patience.
Just a question.
Yes.
Judge Carter is Orange County. Does he cover Bellflower?
He's actually a federal judge.
Okay.
So
Will his area cover Bellflower? Okay. So does he expect every city to have a kind of a shelter or housing? Is that?
That's what he would want. That's what that's what he's pushing for. He actually, what he wants, and when Santa Ana was the first city that did this, right? And so now that Santa Ana did it, and they're having success on it, now the neighboring city of Anaheim, that's why I asked the gentleman about Anaheim, the neighboring city of Anaheim, which was resistant to this, now they are jumping on board, not only jumping on board, but they're super aggressive about it to the point where he's actually told them, you're going a little too fast here. So I believe they wanted to get their shelter up before
January.
Before Christmas. Again, it doesn't.
I think they were expecting it in January.
Yeah, and I think there was an article on that. I want to say it was last Thursday or last Friday on the Anaheim facility coming up to speed. So yeah, Anaheim is super aggressive on this, and so what he is seeing is that he's got 2 cities now jumping on board, and he's hoping that contagion in a way will spread so that every city starts doing this. And if every city does it, then you're either going to get help, right? Or you're going to get arrested, or you're going to have to go somewhere else. And if every city does it, there's nowhere else for them to hide, right? And so that's his hope. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And any questions for Mr. Bates, Mr. Coops?
Yes, when we met with you earlier last week, Mr. Dutton and I and the city staff, there were some things that you said that I want the rest of the council to hear, as the public would be. And one of the things that we asked is, what is the source of your case management folk? Are they educated? Or tell us their background.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we, at the end of the day, we're in a people business. We need great people because they need to make connections with people who are in crisis. And very often traumatized and dealing with, where their next meal is coming from, where they're going to spend the night, how they're going to hold on to their stuff. So there's quite a lot of, effort and thought that we put into the people that we hire. So we're hiring professional people that have bachelor's degrees. Many of our staff are pursuing their master's degrees in social work or have attained those degrees. This is their career trajectory. This is what they want to do with the rest of their lives. And so we have a staff, and then of course we supplement their school education with field training and lots of supplemental support and staff support and professional development training over time because it is such a critical role and it's such a difficult role. Again, dealing with people who are in trauma and in crisis consistently is draining, is wearing. And so we work very hard to support our staff with ongoing training and support. But yeah, I mentioned our staff's close to 50. More than half are street outreach workers, client engagement specialists, case managers. So people that are engaged in dealing with homeless neighbors on a day-to-day basis, all day, every day. And over time, we've been in lots of unique situations, including these shelters that are coming up really rapidly. I don't know if you went by the bus shelter, the Courtyard, which is a 425-bed shelter in Santa Ana. So We operate out of that shelter. We were, as was mentioned, we were on the flood control channel in an RV outside of Angel Stadium 7 days a week during daylight hours, in golf carts, driving up and down, engaging people as they were living in their tents. Over 400 people on the flood control channel. So over time, our caseworkers become very experienced and very knowledgeable about both the local lay of the land and the homeless neighbors and the things that they're likely to see.
Well, and what impressed me, and you failed to do the most important part, many of your case management people were once homeless. They are
Correct.
products of the street. You reclaimed their lives, and now they're working, and they know how to deal with the folks that need help.
Correct. So we have
Please expound on that.
Yeah, we have a role called engagement specialist, and so on most teams, we include at least one engagement specialist, and typically that's a person who's endured some kind of trauma, some kind of recovery. Very often, in most cases, in our, that includes homelessness, but also prison and physical and emotional trauma, addiction, those kinds of things, and they've overcome these things, and now they're giving back in a way, but also they're playing a really valuable role for us as part of the team, because people who have been through homelessness can make connections with others that are experiencing homelessness in a really unique way.
No, they can engage them in a way that others can't.
In a way that a master's of social work, graduate from a nice college never is going to be able to.
No, and you also said that those that have graduated from college, they really don't want to sit in an office and
Right.
try to practice their craft. They want to have boots on the ground.
That's right. This is what they, we hire people that can't wait to get to work every day because they know that they're going to be helping people in need.
All right, next question. Tell us what your experience has been with law enforcement's calls for service, how that is diminished, or how you impact that when you come to a city and do your work.
Yeah, so we're very interested in law enforcement, both in the calls for service and in the clientele that are taking up, that are statistically taking up a disproportionate percentage of calls for service, because the statistics would show that there's probably 5 to 10% of homeless neighbors take up 20 to 50% of the available resources, just because these are the ones that generate all the calls for services for law enforcement. They're the ones that are in and out of the emergency rooms at the hospitals. They're in and out of the legal system. The general public sees them and makes calls all the time. Even if they're sitting on a park bench, they just generate lots of calls and lots of attention. So we work with law enforcement to get a list of who those people are. We also work with parks and librarians and fire and rescue, any city agency that interacts with homelessness at all, because we want to start working on those frequent clients that generate all those calls. Because if we can get those connected to shelter, then we're gonna allow the city to redeploy resources. So we try to draw that calls for service down. Sometimes it works the other way, where the calls go down, but then once people realize that they're effective, then more calls start to come in. But the difference then is that law enforcement has a resource to rely on, that they partner with, sort of hand in hand with, that they can make those referrals and start connecting people to help, as opposed to the limited tools that they have in their tool chest when it's just enforcement.
What I remember best of that conversation is when you said that you signed the contract with Anaheim and that you promised a 10% reduction in calls for service, and you were kind of thinking we went out on a limb, and when the year went by, you had actually delivered 13% less
Right.
calls for service.
Yeah, we did go out on a limb. We were very nervous about that.
So,
We were
I
very
thought that was
fortunate that
interesting.
happened.
All right. Tell us how it is that when you begin the process and you come to a city, and you always know you have churches that have involvement with the homelessness.
Correct.
Explain to us the process whereby you engage them.
So our orientation, we are a faith-rooted organization. We come from faith backgrounds. We're actively practicing our faith. So we recognize the faith community, but our goal is to paint a picture of solutions. Really, we think that the most compassionate thing that a faith community or a city government or anyone can do is not to manage homelessness, but to solve homelessness by connecting homeless people to housing. If you can connect homeless people to housing, you can solve homelessness. You're not managing care, you're providing solutions. And so we think that that's the most compassionate, and the data would show that. The data would show that by people being housed, the quality and the quantity of their life, by any way that you can measure it, improves, just by being sheltered, all other things being equal. So we try to paint a picture, cast a vision for solutions within the city, and in most cases, faith communities are happy to rally towards that. They may be engaged in activities that are not driving towards solutions, but if you can cast a vision for something that would lead towards solutions, in most cases, the faith communities will rally to that. And you know, it's not uncommon. I don't know what I would see in Bellflower, but it's not uncommon in other cities to see the faith community really providing an overabundance of emergency services that is causing unexpected negative consequences towards communities and cities, because there's an overabundance of emergency goods flooded into a community that's sort of managing.
Now, correct me
care.
if I'm wrong, I was under the impression that if you come to Bellflower, you're gonna call in all the churches that have this activity going on, where they're helping our homeless neighbors, and you're gonna prescribe to them things that are helpful and things that are not.
Correct.
And ask them to try to participate in those things that are helpful rather than those that don't solve the problem.
Correct. Solutions.
The solutions are, you know, and our goal here is to put them out of that part of their ministry.
Right.
So they can go to somewhere other, they build a water well in Ethiopia. But the homeless situation has been really dealt with in a positive way.
Well,
That's the goal, correct?
Yeah, we would discourage any activity that would,
And you'll explain those,
inadvertently.
and they may think that all these activities are positive, but you're gonna point out to them that some of them really aren't beneficial.
Correct.
All right, now let's get, now when you come to a city, you said that what you would do, and correct me if I'm wrong, you'll call in all the law enforcement folk at City Hall and have a meeting and explain to them what it is you're going to be doing. Then you're gonna call in all the Parks and Rec folk, and you're gonna do the same thing. And then you're gonna call in all the Parks and Rec people and the Public Works. And every department is gonna be aware of what it is that you're gonna be trying to do. Am I getting it right?
Yes.
All right, and that you work in a way that is rather stealth. You're not coming in here with a big van with city net written on the side. You're gonna be working behind the scenes.
Well, yeah, in a sense, we have a very light footprint. You know, we're not coming in to start one of these shelters. We're not proposing that. We're not in that field. So that's not where our road ends. Our road ends with taking advantage of the available resources that exist. And we will advocate for other resources to come online, but we're not going to run them, and we're not going to propose that to you. Maybe others would, and we might support that. But yes, ours is just an outreach and referral and case management, housing navigation, housing stability service.
And back to what Juan was very impressed with, was the fact that you will create a census of those that need our help. And you're going to engage them in such a way that we will know their name. We're going to, if they'll give it, and if they have 3 names, we're going to figure out which one they are. We're going to figure out what their deal is, whether it's drugs or money or the combination thereof, where they hang out, and be able to have a case management with each and every one of the folks that we identified as being homeless.
Correct.
And that we will work from that list, and you'll supply that list to all those that are in the same game as you are, Kingdom Causes, Path, whoever, so we can work in conjunction to try to make sure that everyone on that list has been offered a solution in their lives. Am I getting that right?
That's correct. The only caveat I would add would be obviously voluntary, so people would opt into that, you know, sharing that information and sharing it across agencies so that they can be connected to care.
Right, and you will engage them so many times, you'll always be in their face, for lack of a better term, that you're going to offer solutions. And if they keep rebuffing you, they might even get tired of engaging you to the point where they'll move on.
Yeah,
Am I dreaming here?
No, you know, we don't, it's very often, and this is maybe where we divert from law enforcement, where they'll categorize homeless neighbors into sort of service resistant and service willing. We don't have those categories. We believe that everybody, you know, deserves a shot at housing, and so if someone initially resists, we just keep trying, and we try different ways, and we keep trying, and we keep trying, and we keep trying, because we've had dozens of occasions where, you know, an initial conversation was a no way, and 3, 4, 5 years later, we get that person housed because we kept trying.
No, and I think the council's aware of the fact that we're so many levels of homelessness in the city. And we can identify the individuals that are totally problematic for the neighborhoods that have caused our census or our survey to be skewed pretty negatively in that direction. And when we go to Mr. Hockman, he says, you know, they fall between the different areas of help. And we're hopeful that we can have you partner with the other agencies in our city to pick up those that we just can't reach. That's, I would think, is our main goal. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hamada?
Mr. Bates, thank you for coming. You had probably responded to this. My question was going to, again, kind of refer to more permanent solutions. And you had said your, again, road to solution was not the build. So I think that was one thing. But the other matter, maybe I wanted to ask Mr. Mayor, what did you want anyone else from the audience to speak? You'll
Eventually, yes.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, all right. All right, thank you, Mr. Bates. I'd like to invite the public to... Any question?
Yeah, I have
I thought you asked questions already. Oh,
Oh, I gave a monologue.
okay, go ahead.
I know in our meeting I talked about one of my pet peeves was some hot spots with some panhandling going on, and where you mentioned that you were able to target those once you're known about the hot spots and several hot spots, and such as freeway off-ramps or some of the gas stations or whatever, that you would go on a private property and engage some of these people where law enforcement at one point is hesitant to go on private property to, you know, address these issues. And your teams would do that. And you seem to have a way with, you know, in the dialogue that we had, that was part of the solution of the...
Yeah, in those cases, you know, we find that the offer for shelter and housing can be really beneficial in those situations. Because in the act of offering service, you know, sometimes you're challenging, you know, what the person is in the case of panhandling, what they're panhandling for. If you can provide that service, and they were willing to take the service, and they don't need to panhandle.
Yeah.
So that, you know, and we're happy to go, you know, engage those conversations.
Yeah, and you know, there's different types of panhandlers. Sometimes, you know, I see, oh my gosh, you see maybe a veteran out there, you never saw that person before, and you go by, or you see an elderly man or something with a walker or something at the last resort, or, you know, those are the people that, you know, really need engagement. Then you see the lunatics or drug addicts that you're scared of at the gas stations and certain liquor stores that you go to, convenience stores, that, you know, are panhandling, and there has to be, you know, that's part of the equation is addressing that with this contract. Also, you mentioned you had a good example of storage, because storage of belongings of the transient population is a big deal. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, and you got any good examples? We kind of said we got the city yard, and you mentioned a container at one of the churches or something, was faith-based groups had a container there to help you, you know, because there's legal aspects of holding their stuff and giving them safe, because that's all these people have.
Correct. So we've had, you know, on the flood control channel, we had private storage that was available in containers, shipping containers or port containers, and we have that currently in Anaheim as part of the services that we provide there. Again, with the caveat that those are for people who are willing to engage in a case management relationship with us, that it's not just, you know, property storage, free storage, but that it's really a temporary place to store stuff so that you can overcome a barrier to get into housing, and that you're actively working on your case management plan. And so we're happy to provide that service in those situations where that's required, because we find, you know, what we found is that if in situations where cities have provided storage, people will fill the storage, whatever the volume is, they'll fill it with stuff.
Right. You got to control it.
Yeah. And then that creates a barrier to going to housing, because I don't want to leave my stuff behind. If I come back, it may not be there. Who's going to take care of it while I'm gone? as you go to the shelters, there's limited storage in the shelters, and so you've got a little bit of room under your bed and maybe a bin outside, and so then they don't want to go because they've got too much stuff. So our caveat on storage, or our best practice, is really just that it's connected to a housing plan. And if it presents a barrier to someone getting into housing, we're happy to help solve that barrier so that they can get into housing.
Right, it's another stepping stone. And then you also shared, when we were talking to you, I think maybe it was Judge Carter, and you have the homeless groups that support them, the advocacy groups, and you would actually, like the advocacy groups can always not get their way. You can't always get your way. The cities can't get all, and the judge will put his foot down and say, this is got to go this way. You had I'm trying to remember what was said in the meeting, but there was something to the effect that nobody is happy, and that seems to be, this is, and except for the judge, because this is the way it panned out.
Right.
Because
Yeah,
you can't help everybody.
Right. Yeah,
and the judge does know that.
And there's a compromise. I think he's, his jurisdiction would extend, my understanding, to LA County if there was a lawsuit that extended and allowed him to then have jurisdiction over this. And so what he's hinted at in other parts of Orange County, like South Orange County wasn't included in the original lawsuit, was that perhaps the defendants could, or the plaintiffs could include other cities in their lawsuit, because that's, the plaintiffs sued particular cities in Orange County, which then forced this, based on the judge's understanding of the interpretation of the Boise ruling, that the cities could not enforce their anti-camping ordinances without an adequate number of shelter beds for the homeless in their city. So they were looking at the point-in-time count numbers and the shelter bed numbers. Some of that is regional, so they're allowing in North Orange County, they're allowing cities that don't have a physical shelter in their city to regionally partner with neighboring cities financially, and so that they've got a number of beds that they've kind of sponsored over there. But yeah, it is a compromise on all sides. But from us as a service provider, I'll just speak as a service provider. From a service provider's perspective, it's a much more client-centered, homeless neighbor-centered, and friendly solution than litigation, which is what's happening in LA County, which is that litigation costs a lot of money, and nothing gets
nothing to the problem.
There's no traction.
No solution.
So the judge has worked hard to get the two sides to compromise in the form of settling the lawsuit as opposed to litigating it.
And the vans that you had, I guess you have another entity that wanted to spend more money and whatever, but you told me the city net vans that you had, and was there in Newport Beach that the cities just love these vans showing up on certain items, kind of like the Ghostbusters van or something?
Well, yeah,
is that what they do?
Yeah, Newport Beach and Anaheim have both asked us to be available 7 days a week. So somebody asked about hours of operations. And we would love to be, we operate 7 days a week down at the courtyard in Santa Ana, so we would love to do it. The reason we generally haven't operated on Saturdays and Sundays is because most shelters won't accept referrals on Saturdays and Sundays, and so it's frustrating to go out, somebody wants to go to shelter, and the available shelter won't take them because they're not doing intakes on Saturday and Sunday, which is understandable. It's a lot of work to do that intake. Newport Beach and Anaheim have asked us to be available 7 days a week because, in large part because city staff and elected officials get so many questions about homelessness that they want to make a phone call and have somebody come out and intervene so that that at least there's traction, at least there's case management that's taking place, there's field work. So we have those contracts that if it got to that point where you needed that kind of coverage, we could provide that coverage in the form of a van. The other thing that we use the vans for is just transportation. So if there's, in some of those cities where the shelters that are referral only will be the vans that will transport people into the shelters.
All right, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone in the public who wants to speak, please come up.
I have a question.
Sign in, Peter.
Yes.
I keep hearing this, but isn't there a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals that said you can't kick people out of public places if you don't have shelters? So how is it, and plus, how can you arrest somebody, because homelessness is not a crime. The only way you can arrest them, they're a danger to self, danger to others, or gravely disabled. Technically, legally speaking, how are they gonna arrest people?
We're not talking
Or just-
about arresting.
Huh?
I don't think we're talking about arresting
Well,
people.
yeah, they will arrest him if they don't accept the service. And then you kick him out of the city. That's remember?
That was the Orange County guy.
I think that's a model right now in those cities, but that's not what we're considering tonight.
But you did bring it up. That's possible.
Correct.
Because
That was mentioned earlier
Yeah.
as a
Correct, that's what
as an option.
Yeah.
But the sheriff's department doesn't arrest people just for being homeless unless they're community crimes or gravely disabled or a threat to somebody else. So how is it? The way you're talking about, you can be arrested for being homeless, basically. 'Cause
To my understanding,
so.
and I'll
they
definitely
said
lean
first,
on,
they have to either accept your things, or they can't because that's medical issues. They can't force somebody medical.
and again, I want to clarify that that's not the model we're considering tonight. Let me start off with that. So,
I brought it up
but
because
I would recommend that if you have that question, you go to those cities that have that and ask them how they do that.
And you still have the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. Wouldn't that
Correct.
overrule Martin v. City of Boise, Idaho, or no? The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruling, that you can't really kick people out of public places? You know what I'm saying? Oh, no, you know,
If there wasn't beds available.
Yeah.
yes.
And to clarify also, with that model of the shelter, it's not, I think it's only a certain percentage. The judge has said, what, 60%, I believe?
60%.
So, for example, like the number Mr. Bates brought up, just as an example, like if there's 100 homeless, right, you have to have provision of beds for 60% of the 100, so it would be 60 beds, right? So it's not to house all of them, so.
So they're gonna be working with PATH, because we got so many, LA County Housing Transit Authority or something, Housing Authority?
Again, I'll clarify that that's not what we're considering here tonight. So that's a,
But I mean, he's saying they're working with different people. Wouldn't they also have to, at some point, work with the LA County, or no?
that's
I know
not
what-
nearly
I know
county.
what
Peter,
you're
that's not the
That's-
solution for tonight's
Yeah.
discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so save that for another day.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good evening.
Council, and
Could you
staff.
sign in, please, just for the
Sure.
record? Thank you.
I will do that. Yes, my name is Keith Sondervan, and I think you all know Chrissy. We're here tonight representing Kingdom Causes, and I think you've heard that Ray Hamada is a Kingdom Cause board member, and of course, we want to sincerely congratulate him on being a member of the council tonight. I thought you should also know, I helped start Kingdom Causes about 20 years ago. And it had a different name at that time, but the way it got the name Kingdom Causes, Ray alluded to that, is we actually partnered with Kingdom Causes, which is now known as CityNet, back when they were in Long Beach. So you are correct that currently we have no affiliation with them or a partnership with them, and then currently, to the best of my knowledge, I think Mr. Bates agreed, they have no LA County contract. But over 10 years ago, they did, and in fact, I was the board president of CityNet as they were changing their name, in the process of changing their name from Kingdom Causes to CityNet. So I know their executive director fairly well, Brad Fieldhouse, and in fact, he helped mentor Chrissy here in her current job. So what we are here to talk about is to maybe consider a partnership between Kingdom Causes and CityNet. Many of our board members are church members. We were founded by a group of churches, and we think there's probably some good synergies between the two organizations. We've been working in the area of homelessness for over 10 years, and in that time, we've taken 400 homeless off the streets, put them into permanent housing. Just last year, we took 53 people off the streets and put them into housing. So I'm going to turn it over to Chrissy now. She has read through the proposal, and we have some thoughts that we'd like to share with you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mayor and council and staff. Thank you for taking the time to discuss this. And let me start by saying I am pleased to see that the city is wanting to invest an additional $250,000 into ending homelessness in Bellflower. I'm going to be brief because I know this meeting has been very long, but let me start by saying also that I am not trying to block CityNet or block any additional partner coming through. In fact, Kingdom Causes Bellflower has a rich history of working well with others. And the truth is we could always use more resources. We cannot be the solution. So let me put that out there that I'm not going after these funds. I do have some concerns with the proposal as it is written. Right now, there's an incredible duplication of services. There's a lot of redundancy between what CityNet is proposing to do and what we are already doing, not on your dime, but on the county's dime and our churches that are fundraising and supporting us to do this work. So as a resident, when I see this, I'm like, yeah, that's great. We want to see the money for this, but let's make sure that we're getting bang for our buck. So, a couple of things. I think what you guys talked about originally was a strategy that outlined, or needing to see a strategy that outlines how CityNet is going to help the homeless people that are not wanting help. Because I think the acknowledgement is that if somebody does want help and we're able to help them, Kingdom Causes is doing that. So I'd like to learn more about what that plan actually is. And what I'm asking you guys is not to make a decision tonight, but to postpone it at least one meeting with a couple of things to consider. The first thing is, my request is that you guys would do a one-year commitment. I think it's risky to bring in an outside agency who's never worked in LA County. And that's to no disrespect of Matt and Brad and CityNet, because I think they're doing great work in Orange County. But Orange County and LA County are very different beasts. And we've seen another city bring an Orange County entity in on their own dime, and it's not going well. And so for that, as a resident, I want to see like good use of those funds. So what my recommendation is, if you are going to move forward with an outside agency who's never worked in LA County, consider only making a one-year commitment. The second thing is, as that proposal is written, I don't see actual deliverables for number of people that are going to get off the streets. So I think there needs to be a refining of the proposal to say exactly how that's going to happen. And that's fine. Like Kingdom Causes, we are a partner. It is in our values to partner with anybody in the city who's working for the good of the whole community. So you have our commitment that we are here to partner. We are not going to do a turf war. Like we're welcoming outside resources because we can't do it all. But I think we need to ask harder questions of what are those actual deliverables, because $250,000 is a lot of money to end homelessness, and that could be used we want to make sure it's used in the best way possible. I think the third thing I would ask, besides moving it to a one-year commitment and asking them to refine it, the third thing is include me in the conversation, include Kingdom Causes, because even if you guys bring them in and you approve it as is tonight, it assumes that we are going to help navigate this with them, because we are the main adult homeless service provider for this area. We are the coordinated entry system lead for City of Bellflower, along with PATH. And there is quite a rich tapestry and ecosystem of service providers that are working together behind the scenes. And it would be to the city's disadvantage and to CityNet's disadvantage to not thoughtfully incorporate into those. So what I would request is that if you guys do move forward, include us in that. And my invitation to you is come to Kingdom Causes, do a ride-along with us, come to our office, and let's talk about what is already being done so that we can hone in the proposal that you guys are considering with CityNet to make sure that we're actually getting the results that we really need for the city. I have a couple ideas, and from what I heard from the night, there are a couple things that Kingdom Causes Bellflower does not have the resources to do. The first thing is a count. So I know Councilmember Garza, that's been a concern of yours, that you want a Bellflower specific count by name, like on one night, similar to what happened in Santa Ana. Bellflower, along with LASA and PATH and other service providers, we participate in the county the county count that happens, I believe, on January 24th this year. It happens every year. We always participate in it. So we're already going to do that. If you want something on top of that, we don't have the staff time to do that. So I think that would be a great opportunity for CityNet to come in and do something like that. As an outside, they have an outside perspective. They might have the manpower to pull that off. The second thing I think that they might be able to help out with is specifically law enforcement outreach. That is something we haven't been able to do very successfully in Bellflower. However, we have been successful in other cities. So I think we need to dig a little bit more at that. And I also know that there are some other resources with law enforcement that are coming online in January that will be benefiting Bellflower. So making sure we know what those are so that we can we can see if there's an opportunity for CityNet to come along and enhance that. And the third thing is what Ray talked about, and which came up at the last meeting, the special meeting we had a couple weeks ago. And that is this idea of bringing in somebody like a private security firm to basically do what law enforcement can't do. And if those are things that CityNet is willing to do, those are three things that I think are gaps, and those are three things that I think need to be outlined more clearly in the proposal. So I guess in summary, just hear me in saying that I'm here, we're here to partner. We know a lot, and so right now we have a by name list of 75 of Bellflower's homeless neighbors that we're currently working with. Those are things that we're willing to share. We'll have to figure out all the HIPAA stuff behind the scenes. So, but we're a team player, but you got to include us, because if you don't include us, it's still going to cost me a lot of money, because I'm going to have to help Matt and Brad navigate LA County, and that's going to be on my dime. So at least bring me in the conversation up front so I can help make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck as a city. So I'll stop there and let me know if you guys have any questions.
Chris, a couple of questions. When you do the homeless count each year, you use volunteers too, right?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same point in time.
So what's going to be the date for 2019? Do you have the date?
Yeah, January 24th.
24th.
It's Wednesday night.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I want to ask you is when you're talking about the gaps in service, you mentioned about three gaps, right?
Yeah, actually there's a fourth huge one, and that's shelter. So that was a question of mine, is right now there's only 2 shelters
And
in
mental.
our spa, right?
Mental will be a fifth.
Yeah. There's a lot. We're talking about a very complex issue. But I think and this is something just full disclosure, I am good friends with Brad. We have talked probably 4 hours over the last week about this very conversation. So there's no surprises there.
Yeah.
Like, there are not shelter beds available in Spa 7. So if your idea is we're gonna offer them shelter, well, guess what? There's not any shelter beds right now. I'm not exaggerating. The closest shelter is Bell Shelter, and the second closest is Whittier, and they are full almost all the time. So if that's your solution, I don't really know how you're gonna get solutions that way. And so I do think long-term, there could be a bigger discussion with other cities in the area of what would it look like to work together to create a temporary shelter. Maybe it's not in Bellflower, maybe it's in a city that has more industrial area, and try to figure out what it means to have reserved beds in those places. But honestly, unless we're adding those other resources online, we're just adding another layer of outreach. And we already have Kingdom Causes Bellflower, LASA, we have PATH, we have Department of Mental Health. What else am I missing? Those are the 4, we have 4 street outreach teams that are already on the streets in Bellflower every day.
2 separate losses.
5. So that's why, so I think there's opportunity for CityNet. I think they actually have a really great competency in law enforcement partnership. And so what I would like to see is, let's not approve, if you guys would not approve it as is, and say, let's refine that so we could actually make sure that it's really meeting the needs and not paying for extra stuff that the city doesn't need to pay for.
Hey,
Thank you.
Mayor?
Any question?
Just to be clear on the contract, it's to execute this agreement with approval of city manager and attorney to define what services we want.
Yeah.
So it's not what you see there, it's just, it's to find out what is needed.
So my request is, is that going to be public, or can I be in on that process to make sure that we're not doubling up? What's that, Jeff?
Right?
You can talk to me, I'm not afraid.
I'm just gonna be blunt, because it's late, and I'm tired, and I don't feel well. But the bottom line is, they had talked about several things that met a lot of needs that we haven't heard ever, not once before. We have an interest in going about looking at this. I'm not interested in playing a brokerage between the groups before I enter into an agreement with somebody. If we enter an agreement with CityNet and we need to sit down and broker out how these services are provided, that's something we would do. But I'm not gonna broker out who's gonna do what, where, when. I want, if we bring this group in, I want them to have every opportunity for success, and I'd recommend that we do it that way if that's what we're gonna do.
And the whole conversation with CityNet was, what do we do with what's left? You do a great job of what you do, and what the 57 you got off the streets this year or whatever. It's the rest of them.
Absolutely.
That's my concern, and that's what I'm pretty vocal, I'm not hiding that, and that's what I've shared with CityNet during the meeting, and
I just want
somehow
to see
they
what
said,
that is in the proposal.
to be blunt, they, I asked them, well, what do you do? What, and I gotta think that, it's, you engage people so much that they don't want the help, and that they go somewhere else. I have a feeling that might be what is the outcome.
Yeah. So.
And in my town, that's okay.
Yeah, I hear you. And again, I'm not saying don't fund them or give us the money. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, do your due diligence and ask for some more, to commit $240,000 without those details hashed out is a big risk as a resident that I would want to make sure the city's doing their due diligence. And I think there's a path forward. So I'm not trying to block it.
Yeah. No, on the other hand, it's something, a year is too soon. 1 year is too soon to have something like this show good results. And I think that's why it's
You
too.
guys always fund us 1 year at a time, though.
Yeah, but it's continuing.
Because we, home field disadvantage, I don't know what the deal is, but I think, so that's my request. My request is that maybe you do pass it eventually, but I think there needs to be some massaging of what they're actually proposing to make sure that you guys and us as residents are getting bang for our buck. Jeff, we can talk later.
All right.
We can talk later, Jeff.
All right, thank you, Chrissy. Any questions for Chrissy?
No, Chrissy, you got it, so you've had conversation with Brad, just as we have?
Yep.
And because he had promised that he would have that conversation before we had this meeting.
Yeah, we've been
Because we were sensitive to your relationship. He explained to us the history of Ms. von Zondervan brought forward. And so we are under the impression that you trust Brad.
I do. I don't trust, I have not heard a actual plan because
If you trust Brad, you trust his plan.
I don't trust his plan right now.
All right, then you
as
don't
is.
trust Brad.
I do not trust Brad right now with the current plan. And Brad knows that. We've talked extensively. So this is me being protective of our city, has nothing to do with Kingdom Causes at this point.
And you don't think we're being protective of our city?
I think you guys don't have the full picture, and that's what I'm asking. So I don't understand the harm in delaying this until the January meeting, just to ask a couple more questions. Because I think if you really talk with Brad and Matt, they gave you their boilerplate template, and they will say that. So let them, now that they know a little bit more of the context, let them make a better pitch of
So you
what
made
is not
you don't
gonna be
think Brad can
duplication.
operate successfully in LA County because he only owns Orange County?
I think it will be on Bellflower's dime at this point unless you guys clarify what you're expecting.
Because the model for LA and Orange County is so much different?
It's very different, and they're not part of the coordinated entry system. So any connection to resources, right now, that's Kingdom Causes and LASA. And what shelter are they gonna connect them to if they're full?
You told us there was no bed spaces to put them in, so we have no resources, and we're not putting anybody into a bed space right now.
So it's long-term solutions.
So it tells me that maybe there may be another idea that comes in because we don't have any options right now.
Yep, I'd
And,
agree
and
with
we're,
that.
and you're telling the council to accept the status quo of no options and not try anything new because that's good enough.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, that's what it sounds
I'm
like.
saying if you're gonna throw $250,000, then maybe you do take the time to find a solution that's actually gonna get people off the street. I do think there's opportunity for CityNet.
If you want to have that meeting, I'll happily have that meeting, but I don't think it's gonna be a pleasant meeting for anybody.
It's okay, it's
Okay.
fine. We need to talk anyway.
All right.
Okay, any other question for Chrissy? All right, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Chrissy. Please state your name for the record. Thank you.
My name is Kim Barnett. I will disclose that I work for the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, who is the LA County Continuum of Care, but I'm here as a resident and a community member, a resident of Downey, and I go to church in Bellflower. I was also a past employee and outreach coordinator for Kingdom Causes since 2010. I'm going to sign my name here. I also agree with Chrissy, and I believe that it's very important for us to bring some more people to the table of this conversation. The homeless delivery system for LA County is absolutely different than the one in Orange County. There are different partners. The coordinated entry system is very complicated, and there is a danger of having duplication of services and a waste of money and resources if we go in a direction that doesn't include the people and the players that are involved in homeless delivery system in this area and in this region. There are many things that are happening with the new homeless initiatives through the county, and I beg that you guys please take the time, give us the time that we're asking to maybe bring the people that can educate and bring some of the initiatives that are being put forth and the energy that is being put forth to address some of these homeless concerns and the issues that are here. I'm also a resident of this area and this community, and I have the same concerns. That's why we work tirelessly to make sure that we address it. And we have the heart and the passion to do this. If there was something that we weren't doing, trust me, we would be doing it right now. I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get to work by 7 o'clock, and I don't get home this last week until 9 o'clock because we work tirelessly to address the homeless issues that we have in our community as work and as a community member. I just beg that you give us a little bit more time, bring the people that need to be at the table to have this conversation, include Chrissy in it and Path, as well as some of the people of LA County Homeless Initiatives, so that we can understand exactly what's being done. The strategies that CityNet is proposing, I'm sorry, but we've already done that. The relationships with the churches, we've done that. The by name list, we've done that. We did, I don't know if you guys remember, I'm sure you do. You guys were here. We did a 3-day, I think maybe even Ray volunteered, a 3-day survey where we had a by name list and we worked on that. And you know what? We tackled that down. And we currently have a by name list that we coordinate with other service providers to make sure that the most vulnerable are getting the services that are there. The truth is, there is no shelters right now. And Orange County isn't gonna let us come take our folks over to Orange County and their shelters. So give us the time, let us have a conversation. I understand this is pressing, and I'm unprepared with statistics and everything else that you guys probably need and want to see. But if you give us some time, I can get the right people at the table to have an honest conversation of where we are and what we're gonna do in the future that can benefit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Good evening, council. Thank you for your time. I know it's late.
Good evening.
Got 2 kids, so
Oh,
I'll
it's
be up
still early.
early. I'm Andrew Nishimoto, Deputy Director at Kingdom Causes. And there were just a couple things that I wanted to clarify because I felt like within the discussion, they were a little bit jumbled into the numbers. The first is one of the statements Matt made about CityNet, and I do believe this is true, that they like to partner with other organizations, as do we. But I think what was not made clear is they necessarily have to partner because they have access to zero resources. They cannot get a voucher for a homeless neighbor because they can't get them into the coordinated entry system, which they have to be able to do to get a voucher. So when Chrissy talks about the impact this will have on us, it has to impact us because they won't be able to achieve their objectives without us. And so I think that when we see a budget coming through in which we aren't being benefited from that, and I'm the finance guy at KCB, I'm the one that's dealing with our budget, and so when I see that our case management hours are going to have to go to the work of CityNet in which their budget was increased, that's a difficult thing for me to deal with, because when I talked to Brad and I have talked a few times as well, I told him in the way that the contract is laid out without a strategic plan, what I will have to do to cover my costs so it doesn't go to my stakeholders without their buy-in, is I will have to triple or quadruple the billing that I put on them for services we provide for them, which again is going to eat triple to quadruple the amount of money that you are offering them. So your budget dollars are going way down in that sense. And that's not a move of defensiveness. That's a move of sustainability for our organization without a strategic plan. So I think that that's one thing that needs to be made clear, is the necessity of their partnership versus the breadth and depth of our services in which we can offer all of those services already. The second thing that I think that is important to note in the presentation, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Joel, sorry. In Joel's presentation, he outlined our budget of $162,000, which makes it seem like we have more resources available. And to an extent, we do, in the sense that we do have $92,000 or $97,000 of client assistance funds, which means in our budget of $162,000, we actually only have $60,000 worth of budget numbers comparable to the services that they're being offered. So you're essentially offering them twice as much money than you offer us to perform services that currently you do not feel are being done well enough. And so I think that that's something that's really important to be noticed, is that the budgets aren't comparable, 162 to 120 a year. It's really 60 for us and 120 for them for services that the expectation for them are much lower as far as numbers and results. So I think that's a really important thing to take note as. If you look at those budget numbers, last time I was speaking up here, I remember we were talking about Steelcraft actually, and your protection for the finance dollars for the city was very high. And I think that this needs to fall into that same protection and the same due diligence that needs to come with that. And to not have to tour with the organization that's been at the forefront of homeless services means that there hasn't been due diligence done completely. And lastly, I think that one of the key points that was made by Matt, actually, Councilmember Coops, you mentioned the engagement with faith communities. And Matt said that that is a priority for them. Talking with Brad today, that is a priority to them, but they will actually not be performing that. They will contact a professional in that area, which currently Kingdom Causes is that in Bellflower, as far as engaging and mobilizing church communities to utilize our training services for that. So again, an impact on our budget that your dollars will be paying for quadruple, triple what they normally would have if you contract directly through us. And so that's just something that I want to make you aware of to clarify some of the statements that were made. I'm 100% on board with what Chrissy said, and I talked to Brad about this. We love partnerships. That's what KCB is built on, Kingdom Causes Bellflower. So we're looking forward to more dollars in this area. We just want to make sure that there is a strategy. And you know, one of the things Councilmember Garza and I went back and forth on our strategy versus speed, and I think that's always a difficult balance because you want to get things done. But I think in this case, and when I talked to Brad, his uncomfortableness about this, he didn't know about this meeting until last night, hence him not being here. The speed of this made him feel uncomfortable. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, and Matt, if you feel like I'm speaking out of turn in that, yeah, and I don't know how Matt feels about that because I didn't get to talk to you directly, but I know that there was a sense of this is being rushed from both sides. And so I just wanted to make that statement, and I do appreciate all your work. I know I only come to some of these meetings, and you guys are at all of them, so I respect what you do and the time that you spend. I've seen you at meetings. I'm at Fantasy Cake almost as much as some of you, and so I know that you guys are in meetings a lot, so I value that, and thank you for your time.
I have a question. I really didn't realize that you guys were engaging churches and going to them and telling them what the best use of their facilities, and Brad is offering to do that, but you've been doing that already, it sounds like.
Yeah,
telling them what products they should be putting out and what products they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of what you do?
That is, yeah, and I think...
Are they following your model?
In some cases. So I know that you've engaged with Bethany Christian Reformed Church at some level, which is a church that I've worked for in the past. And many of our Good Soil residents who are part of our job creation program, which we offer, again, a plethora of services at Kingdom Causes, engages with them directly. As far as I know, Jason, our director of Good Soil Industries, has done presentations there. They actually help support our outreach efforts with them as far as engaging them with community members so that they have more of a connection, so that once they do move on to permanent job employment, they have a community to fall back on, and that's one of the things that Bethany has offered. We engage with Bethel Grace Reformed Church. We engage with Calvary Baptist. We engage with about 16 to 20 churches in Bellflower specifically on a myriad of things. We're a participant in Bellflower Ministerial Association. Our previous executive director was the president and founder of that. And we always have a seat at that table. So yes, we are definitely, that is what we are basically founded on, is church mobilization for the betterment of the community.
I got a question.
That's right.
If a faith-based church
cooks breakfast and lunch for the homeless community or transient population every day, how is that a solution to get them off the streets?
I don't think that that's necessarily a solution. I think it's part of the community building, which one of the key metrics that we've seen in sustainable housing, which is different than the solutions that CityNet does their metrics on. Their metrics are on street exits, I believe is the term that they use, which means a 90-day solution to getting them off the streets. That's the minimum metric for that.
The faith-based community, it's going on, and it's been going on for years, and whether the transient population, hey, they got the best breakfast in town over here, you got, and lunch too, they may become, transient population come through from Norwalk or Downey to go eat there because it's a free meal, and then they go back to what they were doing. They're here coming and going every day. If it's been going on for years, then, there's no solution, there's no end to it.
Yeah.
That's what I see.
Yeah,
and if you're talking to the faith-based community, you ought to be telling them that may not be the way to go. There has to be more of,
Right. Right. And we offer trainings to those that are willing. And I think, Ray, again, a part of the faith community, I've engaged with you in that way as well. I'll paraphrase instead of quote, the poor will always be among us, and we should care for the least of these. And so churches often take that as, how do we do that in the easiest access way? For them, that's cooking a meal. Now, we tell them, we offer trainings. How do we help trainings? We would be more than willing to do that for this entire city council.
Well, it's funny, I'm talking about the Salvation Army Church that's in town. That's exactly what I'm talking, and I didn't know that they were doing that until like a month ago. And they've been doing it for years. And it's amazing that I did not know. And I can't believe I didn't know. I should have known.
Right.
I was kind of shocked and embarrassed for not knowing.
Right. It's very, again, I worked at a church of 400 people in Bellflower, many of them local residents. And until I started working there, they weren't aware of what was available and the trainings that were available, not because of the lack of effort from Kingdom Causes, but because of the walls that have been built by many of the faith communities. Many leaders within the faith communities, again, I'm connected to several of them, either by family or by working there, are aware that we've been doing it wrong within the faith community as well. We have started to build walls when we should be tearing them down. And so I think that that's something that we at Kingdom Causes are willing to partner with and train in. And the churches now are starting to realize we need that. We don't get it, and the way we've been doing it isn't working. So Kingdom Causes, please come in and help us. So my request is the same as Chrissy's, not to end this partnership, but to delay it so that we can strategize with you, because I think we have some really good ideas too. And we can work with Brad. You asked about trust. It's been difficult in this process because there's been confusion on both sides. And miscommunication, missed expectations, that leads to mistrust. If any of you are married, you've experienced that at some level. And so I would ask that in this partnership, in which a marriage is supposed to be the ultimate example of that,
Let's not go
we
there.
have a good marriage. Yes, let's not go there.
So I got to ask this question because it's on my, it's all of a sudden we talk to somebody and they send us a contract for $120,000. And by the way, I said to get it here by Wednesday afternoon so we can have it on the agenda for the Monday council to Brad. And he did. So I don't know why he didn't know.
He did tell me it was a boilerplate proposal.
Because he
that they send to
delivered
every
why I
city
needed it. I
first.
explained why I needed to be here on Wednesday for the 72-hour clause to get on the agenda.
If you want me to write something for $120,000, I'll write it right now.
But the 120, and I look at this with you guys here, it's like, you're going, oh, Bellflower's giving away $120,000 a year. It's almost like where's yours, or give it to you.
And we don't want it. I don't know.
But I don't, that's the way it's coming across. I don't know, am I right, guys?
And I think Brad, and I wish he could be here, and I know that he does wish he could be here just because of the scheduling crunch that was given to him. He wasn't able to be. He knows that we don't want that money. What we want is a plan. And like we said, he knows, and I think I'll be transparent with you. You approve this today, we're still going to partner with him because that's what KCP does. What we would love is for it to be done in such a way that we as residents can respect as far as the due diligence put into the plan.
All right, any other question?
I have a question. And, I don't know who to ask this to, but so right now I'm hearing, and rightfully so, that there's a need for a plan, right? So my question is, why hasn't this been done before?
You mean, why has there been no plan?
Correct.
Well, I think that many of our staff have been working with many city staff on creating a homeless plan. And before more more budget dollars has not been presented as an option. I know for me, again, I'm new to the homeless service. I've been working in my position for 18 months, and I've specifically taken on our grant management in the last about 9 months. And so looking at our renewal contract with the city of Bellflower, there was no option to increase or look at options of services. It was basically given to us as a renewal, and we actually had to take that in as whether or not we were going to renew at what we were or decline the contract period. There was no option for discussion, and I know that many of our staff, Rebecca Vanderzee, who's the director of our housing, has been involved with conversations with several cities in their homeless plan. They actually seek us out because of our expertise in this area. And so I think that our connection to some of you on the council, as well as some city members, has made ourselves available. We didn't seem like there was and again, Chrissy, you can correct me if there was an openness or an invitation for us to be at the table, which I think was demonstrated in this process.
Was Kingdom Causes at the meeting that we had, the special meeting a couple weeks ago, where the mayor had several specific concerns?
Yeah, Chrissy was here.
And
She was
at that point, did it seem like things are going okay, and that we didn't need any additional help, or we're thinking through it?
Hold on, Jeff. Chrissy's out there.
Yeah, I know.
She can do that, okay?
All right.
You know that.
It's fair enough. I'm just saying, I don't think we surprised anybody with our concerns.
Oh, you're not,
All right.
if you want to speak, come up here.
I was here, and that's not the conversation. We're not surprised. I understand where you guys are coming from. And I'm not claiming that Kingdom Causes on its own can address what you guys are specifically talking about, which is serving the people who do not want to get services. Let's be honest, that's exactly what we're talking about. Am I correct?
Right.
That's fine. So if CityNet's gonna come in, then let's have them lay out how they're gonna do that, because their current proposal does not come anywhere close to convincing me that they're able to do that. So, and I think what we talked about, I was there at that meeting, I followed up with an email to you guys offering additional input and services. Take me up on that, because I think there's some creative solutions that they could come in and support us on. So that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Did it answer your question?
Yes, sir. And so I got the response. Last question. Let's say more time was given. How long would it take to flesh out a plan
We
that
had originally
everyone
planned-
can?
Sure, we had originally planned to meet face-to-face with Brad on Thursday, but this caught us all by surprise. So this is why it's a little bit of a bigger issue for us. So when's your next council meeting? Is it January? Or is there another meeting in December?
No, this is the last meeting this is the only meeting for December.
We have a
So
cannabis
by
meeting
your
at
your
17th.
first meeting in January, I feel like we could come up with it. Like, Matt, you feel like we could work together? Come up here, like, I mean, you're gonna have to, so.
So, yeah, I don't feel like they're dealing with us in good faith here. I think that the allusions to conversations with Brad, and Brad not being here, and Brad being caught unawares, and Brad, like, I think that's, I don't feel that right now. Maybe it's late. But I think our point is that if this is not new to us. We've had other places that we've gone where, almost every place that we've gone, other nonprofits have said, well, if you let us write the proposal for you, it would look like this. And that's just not how we do it. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else who would like to speak about this item? All right. Any final comments, gentlemen?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Amada?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Being the new guy, I'm kind of at a sort of quandary, because I've heard, conflicting statements. I heard that there was no overlapping, but apparently there might be overlapping. So which way is it? And again, the question of, yes, this is very important. This is a critical issue. We need to start working on it. And is there additional time to do some fine tuning? I've heard the name Brad. I don't know Brad. I've never met Brad, but he seems to be a very important person. So can he provide some more insight on any discussions or any clarifications? Yes, in reading this, it was my interpretation that there would be some fine tuning, but again, to what extent? And is there going to be money spent on just trying to figure out what to do? And will it sort of eat into that monetary amount? So that's where I'm kind of like a little puzzled here, because again, I've heard both statements, and so I haven't heard the right answer, or if there is a right answer.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Any
Mayor.
other comments, Mr. Garza? Councilman Dunn? Coops?
I have there should be a chance for our
Yeah.
city net representative
Okay.
to
Do
rebut.
you want to rebut any of these statements? I thought you came up here and you had the chance.
And maybe that'll clarify, when it's mentioned that there are no, even if you try to help someone in Bellflower, you have no place to take them. Is that true?
So it's true that we don't have any beds. Yeah, that's true.
All
It's
right.
not true, it's not true that we don't have access to the continuum of care in places that we work. That's not true. It's not true that we don't have vouchers in the places that we work. That's not true.
Now, it
So
was
I think-
mentioned,
I think what I feel like we've been misrepresented by another agency who's telling you what we have said. And we've given you a proposal. So, and we met with you and we answered your questions. So, I think they've gotten up here and they've said things that are not true. And I think I don't think they're being honest about the reasons why.
do you feel as though that the process is being rushed and that Brad and yourself would feel better about having to step back from it and evaluate what we're doing here?
No.
Is there anything in particular that you want to convey that is not true? Did you hear a statement here that you want to rebut?
Well, I think the services that we provide and what we're proposing has been mischaracterized. And I think that the conversations that we have had as an agency, with Kingdom Causes Bellflower as an agency, have been reported to you from Kingdom Causes Bellflower's perspective. I didn't report on that.
So do you,
So I think I think it's colored by their perspective.
it's been mentioned that the redundancy factor will be the fact that when you arrive in Bellflower, if you come, that you need to engage their services to be able to even house anybody because you don't have that authority. Is that right?
That's not right, no. Because we house a lot of people outside the continuum of care.
All right,
And
but I
outside-
mean,
and
where,
outside the coordinated detention
I've
system.
been, what I think the council's
what they-
hearing is that an LA County homeless person is in a different category than what you're doing in Orange County. Are we getting that wrong or right?
No, that's what you heard, not
Right.
from me, but that's what you heard. Now, CityNet, we also work in Riverside County, and we've also been approved for HEAP funding in Santa Barbara County. And we're in 2/3 of the cities in Orange County. And in many of the cities in Orange County, and many of the counties, it's the same, there's a process of learning that takes place. They're all different, that's true. LA County is different, there's no question about it. But I think the question before you is, do you trust us as an organization to figure it out? We have a track record of figuring out how to get people connected to housing in different communities, in 3 different counties, or 2 different counties, a third pending, in more than 20 cities, when in almost every place there are people in those cities that would say, there's no more beds, there's no way to get people housed. So what we do is we overcome barriers. That's what we do as a nonprofit. Is it possible that we'll come to LA County and everything's different in Bellflower? That's possible. But I don't believe that to be true. And I think we'll work hard to overcome barriers. And I think the question is, do you trust us to do that? Does our track record show that we can do that?
Historically, when you come into a town and you have an organization not unlike Kingdom Causes operating, do you need to utilize their expertise in order to make yours go forward?
Well, I think they have said that they don't want redundancies, and we don't want redundancies. I think they've said that they welcome us to come in and fill gaps. I think we've said that we would come in looking not to replicate what's already existing, what is already working, but to fill gaps. So I think that's true. I think that we would, I think that process of discovery would take place, but no, we wouldn't, our plan, our model does not rest on burdening Kingdom Causes Bellflower.
It was mentioned that Brad's already reached out to Kingdom Causes to conduct the meetings at the churches. Has that been the case?
I don't know what.
You understand what, is that, do
Yeah.
you guys farm that stuff out, or do you do it yourself?
No.
Can you hold for a second? Who's Brad?
Brad's president of Kingdom Causes, Kingdom Causes Inc., DBA CityNet. So he's president
Okay,
of
all right.
CityNet.
Now we know whose Brad is.
Right.
Yeah.
Only Dutton and I know because we were in the room with him.
The secret guy. I mean, kind of Brad.
But
we have-
historically, do you do these things
Yes.
yourself, or do you farm them out?
Both.
Okay.
We have curriculum ready to go, but if there are trainings that are going on, that are ongoing, that are effective, then we're happy to let other agencies do it. In Orange County, we've done it ourselves, and right now United Way is doing Homelessness 101 classes that are very effective, and we're happy to support them in that. Because we're not looking to replicate services. If something's working, we want to support it and let it keep working.
All right. That's all I have. I just want to give a chance to rebut what.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any question for Mr. Bates? Okay. Let me just say that my concern is it's beyond CNET, CityNet, beyond Kingdom Causes. My concern here is we had a meeting in November. That was our only meeting we had to discuss about the homelessness issue. And part of that discussion was we are going to participate in educational tour. Councilmember Coops and I joined as the two SAOs last week to tour around the city. And the staff report mentioned that participating in area meetings, I have not been part of that any area meeting since our discussion in November. So my concern is beyond Kingdom Causes, beyond CityNet. My concern is since November, there's not been any presentation, at least to me, what are the options? Do we have any other options as far as solving the homelessness solution? That is my concern. And as you know, I've worked in Skid Row for 5 years. And I don't think that 1 month, 2 months of evaluating this will make a huge difference. Homelessness will be there, okay? Let's get it out. There will be someone in the world, in the city, in Bellflower, who's going to be homeless. If we can eradicate homelessness in the city, my goodness, it is, lo and behold, it's going to be great. But I doubt it. I've worked in Skid Row for 5 years. I've seen a lot of solutions in terms of addressing homelessness, starting with soup kitchen, shelters, transitional housing, permanent supportive housing. There's so many solutions out there. So going back to my concern is this the solution? Is this a solution? So it seems like we're coming up with a solution right away without the benefit of evaluating, is there anything else out there to help solve our problems in the city of Bellflower? That is my concern. Okay? And I'll leave it at that.
Mayor?
Yes.
I can make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute agreement file number 822 in a form approved by the city attorney.
Second the motion.
There's a motion from Councilmember Dutton, seconded by Councilmember Coops, to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement number 822 in a form approved by the city attorney. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Dutton?
Aye.
Councilmember Amata?
No.
Councilmember Coops?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza?
No.
Mayor Santinez?
No. All right, next item, consent calendar, Mr. Stewart.
This is the consent agenda. There's no conflicts tonight. If there's any additional clarifications or needs, pull the item. We will answer the question. Otherwise, we recommend approval.
Is there anyone who wants to pull an item from the consent calendar? Okay, just for the record, there are no, again,
No conflict.
there are no conflicts, so that Mr. Coops will be very pleased. I have no conflict. All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by by Mayor Pro Tem Garza, Councilmember Hamada, to approve the consent calendar, and without objection, that will be the order. Council reports.
None.
Councilmember Coops.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting in honor of a deceased neighbor of mine, and his name is Pete Robert Struxma. Pete was born July 28th, 1943 in Adrian, Minnesota. Passed away December 2nd, 2018 at the age of 75. At a young age, he loved to work outdoors with his dad, and he would work on tractors, farm machinery, and anything else that kept a wrench in his hands. He was an amazing mechanic. He left high school early, and in 1965 was drafted into the Army and was sent home after a problem with a polio incident 3 months later. When he returned home from the Army, he decided to move to California, where his loving relationship began with Sharon. They were married July 27th, 1967, began their life together here in Bellflower. Pete worked for West Coast Sand and Gravel for 17 years, and he started his own mobile repair of diesel trucks, PG, and he fully retired in 1988, and he retired in 2014. He's survived by his wife Sharon, 4 children, Lisa, married to Kevin, Glenn, Denise, married to Dave, and Donna, and 14 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, 3 brothers, Glenn, Jerry, and John, and 3 sisters, Linda, Donna, and Sherry. Our deepest sympathies and our heartfelt condolences go out to the entire Struxma family. So I'd like to adjourn in memory this evening of Pete Robert Struxma.
Thank you. Mr. Hamada?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem
Yes, I
Garza.
do, Mr. Mayor. And I'll make this really quick because I know it's late already. But on the 6th of December, last Thursday, Metro had a big decision to make regarding the light rail line that's going to go through our city. I'm happy to report that it was a big win for the Southeast. There was a couple of hiccups, including a last-minute request by the speaker to add a station to the line that would have potentially delayed our project by multiple years. There was the solution where you have a parallel path where you don't delay the project, but at the same time study his station. He wants to add a station to the line at the confluence of the Rio Hondo and LA River. So he's happy, we're happy, everyone's happy, which is great. So I'm happy to report that. For now, Metro's going to be working on their EIR process. So we probably won't hear about this project for a while just because they have to undergo the environmental process. So I expect it'll probably be a year before we actually get some feedback from them. But in the meantime, I know they're working on their public-private partnership efforts to be able to expedite this project and get it done by 2028. And lastly, related to that, I have asked staff and our city attorney to work on our current partnership with EcoRapid. And depending on their findings that they'll bring to us, as of right now, I'm going to recommend that our city has had a good run with EcoRapid, and I think we met our objective, and I'm not sure that a continued partnership in that organization is of benefit to our city.
Okay.
So, but that will be coming up depending on how much time they need to put that together. But
Yeah, it'll be January.
Okay.
Because I don't think I can make it by next Monday.
Okay, perfect. And so I wanted to just give a heads up on that.
Okay.
I can present a report. Thank you,
Good
Mr. Mayor.
report. Thank you so much. Tonight's meeting is adjourned in honor of Pete Struxma to an adjourned regular meeting of the Bellflower City Council at 5 p.m. on Monday, January 14th, in the Green Room to conduct the outgoing mayor's ceremony in honor of Councilmember Ray Dutton. The meeting is adjourned.